Kyrie Irving over 26.5 points against the Charlotte Hornets. That's what we're targeting first and foremost here. Best top play on the board is Kyrie getting to 30 points against a Hornets team that's going to give up 30 to 1, at least, of 2 Brooklyn Nets players. Beauty about the Nets is that there's no real insistence on moving the ball, right? You're going to go out there and pound a team like Charlotte into the ground. Damn it, it's going to be done at the hands of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. There's a bigger number for Kevin Durant than Kyrie. I think there's an equal shot for both of these guys to get to 30 points, meaning I think there's a better chance for Kyrie with a wider cushion, if you will, if he falls short. Durant's going to be sitting at 28, 29 points, maybe even higher than that. So we're fine here going over 26.5 with Kyrie as our first play. Everybody's on Luka right now. Everybody's on Luka. And I get it. But it's not just Luka scoring points. It's Luka grabbing rebounds. It's Luka with the dimes, right? Everybody's on there. What I'd like to do is target someone in Christian Wood and his points, because I think that outside of Luka Doncic, we need to find somebody else who is a prime target to get you 120, 130 points in that game before blowout mode really happens. Like, who's going to help that Dallas team get to a comfortable lead before you hit blowout mode? And it's going to be Christian Wood for us, more so than Dinwiddie and Hardaway Jr. from a scoring standpoint. And again, I just don't see the value in smashing it over 32.5 for Luka. It doesn't mean he can't get there. It's just going to be such a heavy public play now that I'm trying to find other guys who are still going to impact the game in either a tight one, which is surprising against the Spurs, or just a blowout. And that's the other one. All right, speaking of points, we don't have to go down much more here, and that's Kevin Porter Jr. over 18.5 points. We'll see what's going on, of course, with the New York Knicks, Jalen Brunson, but having a hole in their backcourt has been a problem, major problem. And it's something that we can think about from a global standpoint of where the Knicks are in the next couple of weeks and how bad this set them back. But for tonight, there's a guy in Kevin Porter who I think is going to have his hands all over this game. And clearly there's going to be the number one strategy for Houston is to get Jalen Smith the ball as much as possible. But the Knicks know that as well. And there's where I think an opportunity for Kevin Porter Jr. arises, and you can slide in there and grab 20 points. So, again, if you're looking at that, simply going over 18.5 to 19 points is fine. You don't want to get bit on that 1 point. But we really like Kevin Porter Jr. at 19-plus points. Fourth play on the board is going to be Ivica Zubac at under 11.5 rebounds. Hey, this is going to be a faster-paced game for the Clippers. It's going to be more of a shootout as the Pacers will demand that you
All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on a Saturday. Talking a little NBA action here. We've got a little deeper dive followed up by the live before lock. I am joined by Gundacker, the one and only Gundacker. Talk to me, Gun. What's going on? It's been what, like 27 hours since we spoke?
Yeah. We got a couple shows lately. Not much, man. Just researching, crunching numbers, and trying to track this news. We got a little bit right before we went live, so I'm trying to make sure my data is reflecting that.
Yeah, we've got the old Saturday, the old New Year's Eve. Tomorrow there's just 3 games at 8 o'clock. Of course, it's a full NFL slate tomorrow, so it'll be interesting to see how many people are hungover trying to enter into that one. I'll be up bright and early writing articles and stuff, so it'll be a good time. Maybe I'll stay up till about 11 tonight. That sounds like a plan. It sounds exciting. Gun, what are you going to go to bed around 11 a.m. tomorrow?
AM, yeah. Yeah, I'm a night stalker. I don't have any plans. I don't know if I've ever I've never drank alcohol before or done anything.
Oh, really?
So I don't celebrate random holidays. But hey, new year, new beginnings. I hope everyone is safe. I do hope everyone that's watching now is here tomorrow. Don't be stupid tonight.
Yes.
Be safe.
Yeah, absolutely. No need to be dumb and dangerous. There's a reason that they have Uber and Lyft and taxis and all that stuff. So let's get into our slate here. We're going to run this game by game. We are brought to you by BetMGM. So we'll talk about that, how you can get 2 free months of Stokastic and $1,000 risk-free bet. Hint, hint, that deal's going away soon, the 2 free months part. So don't dilly-dally. Get in on that. I mean, we're giving away 2 free months for basically free. You got to do it. But of course, we've got the request to ask you all to like and subscribe. So let's start off with that like button. We're at 64. We got about 500 watching. Come on, we can do a little bit better. Now we can get us up to 100 there. Each like from here on out will improve the odds of your fantasy performance here. And then if you're looking for free, because some of you are looking for free, you got to go with the Stokastic avatar. You can go to stokastic.com/avatar. Finish top 3 in a contest with over 5,000 contestants and tweet that win at Stokastic HOF, and you're going to get 30 free days of Stokastic Premium. Of course, you're going to have to, that's not tied for a whole bunch of your best friends on Showdown first place. You need to be first, second, or third. Producer Chris was bragging. He won the Yahoo weekly contest yesterday for NBA, top 31,000 people. I was about 5,000 spots behind him, but it's a fun little contest. They do a little season-long contest over there. Hopefully he'll get 30 free days of Stokastic. Let's jump on in here. Again, we've got, let's see, we'll go with our first game here. It's the New York Knickerbockers at the Houston Rockets. Knicks favored by 3.5 to 22.5 implied total here. RJ Barrett, which I misspelled his name, Battet. I don't know what I was doing, but RJ Barrett is out. Jalen Brunson, still questionable. He's missed the last 2 games with the hip injury. There'll be some moving parts there if he is gone or if he is out again. And everybody's healthy for Houston, but I do want to point out that they are 6-10 at home. They have lost their last 2. They're 3-7 in their last 10, and they have the second fewest wins. But they do play tough at home. What do you got for this one? Talk us through the Knicks. And is Julius Randle, does your love for Julius Randle hinge on the availability of Brunson, or are you going Randle no matter what?
No, I think this matchup's a beautiful matchup regardless. Julius Randle just straight up without RJ Barrett this season. Rocking a 32% usage rate, 1.3 DraftKings points per minute if you lose Jalen Brunson. I remember Brunson's a guy that can dish to rock, sets up Randle just fine. Brunson has had or if I take Brunson off, Randle's still at over a 31% usage rate and still 1.3, 1.4 fantasy points per minute. So I don't think that's going to waver my interest in Julius Randle at all. I do feel like if we get definitive news that Jalen Brunson's out, it just makes Randle's floor that much higher. But this is an incredible matchup all year long, all year strong. So I'm in on Randle. It's one of my favorite pay-up options on the day. And then, of course, if we were to lose Jalen Brunson, it would extend interest in guys like Emmanuel Quickly, who has been doing an incredible job fantasy-wise without Brunson. And then you could look a little bit deeper for guys like Miles McBride, but not as much trust, a little bit more flimsiness. But yeah, I love Julius Randle here.
All right. I see Ted Nugent gracing us with his presence. Yes, Stranglehold, one of my favorite songs. Just the amazing guitar riff, the solo in the middle. It's a good song. It's a good song. Stone cold sober. It's a good song with a little assistance. It's just a good song all the way around. Are the lyrics appropriate? No, not really. But let's just set that aside for now. All right. Hitting on Houston, everyone healthy. That makes it tough. These guys tend to pop off now and then, much as we would expect with young, talented players. They're sort of hit and miss. They're not quite playing as fast and loosey-goosey as they were at the end of last season, but there still want opportunities for them to have mental lapses, which makes all of them inconsistent or consistently inconsistent. Does anyone stand out for you? It feels to me like these guys tonight, without anybody being out, it's just like, if they're in my lineups, no problem. If they're not, I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
Yeah, I think Kevin Porter Jr. Jalen Green would be the two for me, and probably more so on DraftKings taking a look at Jalen Green. I do like guards against the Knicks. Their interior defense has been pretty solid, and a guy like Jalen Green has been one of the more steady guys in terms of projecting minutes and usage for the Rockets. So if I had to get somewhere, I think the likeliest outcome for me in terms of highest exposure would be Jalen Green, but no warm and fuzzies through and through a lineup, a really healthy lineup of 10, 20 minutes and a lot of volatility there. So just Jalen Green, maybe a little Kevin Porter Jr.
All right, so we got plenty to talk about, so we're going to continue to maneuver on here. We do have 7 games on our slate tonight. Most things condensed. The last game tips off at 9 o'clock, so for those of you looking for a little New Year's revelry, you'll be able to get that on the East Coast, and in particular, anything west of the East Coast. Our next game here, we've got the Dallas Mavericks. They are 7.5-point favorites in San Antonio, taking on the Spurs. We just got news that Devin Vassell will be missing a second consecutive game with a sore knee. Keita Bates-Diop is still out with a non-COVID illness. Luka Doncic has been on the injury list with a sore ankle. He's managing it at this point. Gosh, if this is what he does with the sore ankle, what happens when he's fully healthy? We just want to point that out because there's always a chance this could be the wonky game where he gets a night off or something like that. But in the absence of that, he's arguably the top play of the slate. He definitely, from a raw points perspective, we're looking at 12,100 on DK, 12,400 on FanDuel. In his last 5 games, he's averaged, and yes, there's been some overtime in there, but he's averaged 40 minutes, 22.8 field goal attempts, almost a 58% success rate. And that includes 7 from beyond the arc every game with a 43% conversion rate. In this stretch, he's averaging 40.4 points, 11.8 rebounds, 10.4 assists, 2.8 combined blocks and steals. Wow, but is he going to keep that up? Oh, I don't know, but at least on the season, he's still averaging just over 50 fantasy points, and more importantly, 1.6 fantasy points per minute. So it's a nice matchup against the Spurs. He's going to kind of be able to do whatever he wants tonight. So Luka Doncic clearly at the top. There's all the superlatives for him. Who the heck can we look to as his understudies, Gunn? Because his usage, he just takes it all, with the exception of when he's passing it.
Yeah, there's no comfort in really any other Maverick. I think if you simulate a game against the worst defense a few times, I think every now and then you'll get positive outcomes for a guy like Christian Wood. AK volatility on that price point, you're looking for that 40 plus, but the matchup is fine. And then Dorian Finney-Smith, who's not a big usage guy, but is a big minute guy, does open up some opportunity for other guys to fill into minutes. A guy like Reggie Bullock, 3,500 on DK. If you had him in your back pocket, I wouldn't point and laugh at you, but nobody else other than Luka would be a priority for me here. But I wouldn't be stunned if we saw a usable game out of a 6.5K Spencer Dinwiddie or about 6K Tim Hardaway. But it's only I'm only likely to get here a little bit more than usual because it's the San Antonio Spurs and there's such a soft matchup.
So you said if I saw somebody walking around with Reggie Bullock in their back pocket, I would be pointing and laughing. Wait, this is the literal figure.
I wouldn't, because that's probably a large man. And I'm a big dude, but man, if you got Reggie Bullock in your pocket, I'm gonna let you make it. Good times.
Yeah, so that it's kind of just a cautionary tale with the rest of the Mavericks. They'll have some moments here. It's going to come down to if they get the hot hand, or in the case of Christian Wood, dropping some threes, getting some extra rebounds, and playing in the closing lineup, because then again, at the end of all of this, we got to deal with whatever Coach Jason Kidd is going to decide to do. The Spurs, on the other hand, what is it that Greg Popovich is going to decide to do? Well, continue to allow the team to lose. They're in the midst of their rebuild here. We kind of know what happens when Devin Vassell is out. The challenging thing with the Dallas Mavericks, they do play at a relatively slower pace because they go into their half-court set so often. So it's one of those where when you're taking teams against them, you're like, oh yeah, this is going to be a high-scoring game, and then your team takes an 8% hit on the number of possessions they have on a standard basis. So it becomes a little tricky there. However, when someone like Vassell is going to be out, that's going to open up all sorts of usage and opportunities. But as we've seen with like Jakob Poeltl and some of the other key players, they're rarely hitting 30 minutes, or in their guards and wings are occasionally, but you know, Pirtle's not, and some of the others. So it's suppressed their prices, but they still have their upside. They're just, the frequency of getting there is real tricky. And I think it's going to be tough in a matchup like this. To me, it feels like a little bit of a trap. How are you getting a read on the Spurs?
Yeah, this is a fire and ice matchup, right? Fast paced team against the slowest paced team. But I do think because of a 7-point spread here, the game script is favorable for some of these guys to play a little bit faster, play a little bit catch up. And the absence of Devin Vassell, 31.5 minutes per game this season, about a 24% usage rate. So there could be opportunity worth trying to grab. Jeremy Sohan has been kind of a DFS darling in the last week or so. On DraftKings, he's sub 5K. Remember, Dorian Finney-Smith, a defensive stalwart for the Mavericks, not going to be on the court. So maybe the matchup and usage opportunity for him at that price point can be worth a click or two. Keldon Johnson, I think, is generally efficiently priced for this matchup, but without Vassell, maybe you can put a little bit more edge on him. Looking at the Spurs this season, taking Devin Vassell off the court, we've got Keldon Johnson leading the entire team in usage at 34%, but just about a fantasy point per minute, 1.1. So not blowing me away, but I think Trey Jones and Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Sohan would be the three guys I'm likeliest to click, with the emphasis on Jones and Keldon Johnson with a bigger sample size of productivity.
All right, I just want to see where we're getting some ownership runs here. The boom bust is in the midst of updating. I just want to check real quick where some of these San Antonio folks are coming in. So Pirtle's coming in at 25% on DK, 5,700 there. It's a little more manageable. Jeremy Sohan is at 14%. Trey Jones is at 10%. Those are all kind of reasonable there. You know, we're not going to get overly excited for any of them. It's going to be a little tougher to get Pirtle on FanDuel because you can only play one center there. And though they have given a lot of people power forward eligibility, it's still kind of tricky when you're looking at some of the centers. So he's only coming in at 11% there. Keldon Johnson and Trey Jones are coming in 20-25%. So those would be the players you'd kind of look to on those sites. Let's take a peek here. Let's do one more game and then we'll have some fun. Cleveland at Chicago. So Cleveland, let's quickly look at the news because we're waiting to see what's up with Darius Garland. We do not have any news yet. He is dealing with a thumb injury, so he's questionable. Evan Mobley has a sore ankle. He's questionable. And then Shetty Osman is dealing with a back issue. We don't have any news on those guys. For Chicago, a handful of people are questionable. Most everybody's going to be available with the exception of Goran Dragic. This is a back-to-back, but Zach LaVine not on the injury report, so he should be playing. Excuse me, now I have the hiccups, it sounds like, but this is also a 3-4 for Chicago. Last night they beat Detroit 132-118. So nobody really went overboard on minutes there. They kind of had that game in hand. Take us through this game. If Garland's out, we're really going to be looking at Mitchell, I think would be our key play. If Shetty Osman is out, it's probably Karis LeVert. I guess Karis LeVert gets a little bit of a bump as well if it is Garland who is out. And then if Osman is out, do we get a Kevin Love sighting? This is like they have one player at each level of the positions right now that's questionable. There's a lot of choose your own adventures ahead here, Gunn.
Yeah, I mean, from the top, if Darius Garland's down, that's the captain of the ship. So I think we'd immediately be looking at Donovan Mitchell on both sites under 9K. He would have pretty big upside, 40-50. He still might fall through some cracks based on what else is available, but he would be the first guy I want to investigate. Already averaging 20 points a game, and Darius Garland, if he's absent, he's representing over 21 points a game and almost 8 assists per game. So I think we'd look to Mitchell to pick up the facilitation duties and then probably pick up a little bit more scoring. You mentioned some of the backups. We've seen Shetty Osman already miss. Matter of fact, he was down last game, and you mentioned Karis LeVert. LeVert saw 34 minutes. He did close yesterday. I guess you could correlate that to Osman's absence as well. I think Kevin Love is just going to be Kevin Love. He's 21 minutes, 24 minutes. As long as we got a healthy Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, I wouldn't go overboard with boosting Kevin Love based on somebody else's absence. I think, foul trouble might help him out or whatever, but I don't think we're going to see a big minute game from him unless so one of the other two front court guys got in trouble. And then, yeah, I think Levert's the guy. I think he would be the most interesting points per dollar if a guy like Garland was able to miss, especially on DraftKings. 4,300 is already something that I would be interested in almost no matter what. Definitely if Jetty was down, and then potential lock at 4,300 if Garland was out. So there's a lot to unpack here for a Cavs game, and I usually am not that enthralled with Cavs day to day, at least not this many people. So that's big news, but it is part of the first games on the lock. So hopefully on the live before lock show, we'll have that news and we'll be able to steer appropriately.
Yes, that is an excellent point. We do have those guys coming on after us here to kind of clean things up. So that will be key. One of the things I do like, I see it, I'm looking to see if it's posted right now. It doesn't seem like it's on the board, or at least on the sites I'm looking at, is Kevin Love's rebounds. Usually sometimes you can get a 5.5 number. Sometimes you can get a 6.5. Look and see what that is. I think they've got most of Cleveland's numbers off the boards because they have 3 different people questionable. So keep an eye on that. I like the overs for those. It's right. His per 36 is still, I think, going from memory, I wrote this up earlier this week, is like 12.4. Now he's not going to play 36 minutes, but that's in line with like his career rate. So he's still a really, really good rebounder. And so anything that gets him to 22, 24 minutes instead of 18 to 20, you got a great chance of him getting those rebounds. And then if you go back and look at his game logs, about 2/3 of the time he gets to that number as well. So that's just one of those where, maybe you're still not thrilled with whatever's going on in DFS, or, you've got playing just a handful of lineups. That's another matchup that you can look at or another way you can utilize your DFS knowledge or your NBA knowledge to find a little bit of an edge, or you can go look at those on Prize Picks if you don't have sports wagering in your state. Anything else from the Cavs, Gun?
No, I think the Cavs are self-explanatory. I think Jared Allen and Evan Mobley on DraftKings 6,300, 6,500. That's decent stocking stuff for pricing for their minute projection. So they probably fall in like a tier 3 exposure level for me. So basically I wouldn't X them out. I think they have some upside. I probably would set a group where I don't put them both in the same lineup. But I do think they're cheap enough on DraftKings that they have a ceiling worth having some exposure to if you're into mass entry.
All right, Jacob Venture says, EMac, your goatee looks fake today. Did you get a touch up for New Year's? This can't be real. No, it's kind of all white now. It used to be kind of gradient. When I started doing DFS content, you go back and look, it's like, well, I didn't have that as much gray hair as I do now. Now it's gone from gray to white. So we're kind of stuck with that. It's kind of a family trait. My brother, he has very, very, very blue eyes. And his hair is he's younger than I am, but his hair is whiter than mine. He does look like Santa Claus when he lets his beard grow out. It's pretty funny. But thank you. I hope we'll see. We'll have to, I don't know if Hannah or Blitz or one of our members of the fair sex is around. They can give their read on, is this a distinguished look? Should I do my LL Bean pointing off to the mountain pose there? We shall see. But thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Looking here at Chicago, let's just assume everybody's kind of in until we're told otherwise. It makes them all okay. It's been a while since we had a really major injury amongst them. We got Alex Caruso back. Things are getting a little crowded again towards the back end of the rotation. Green's kind of falling out of the mix. It's still kind of the Vucevic, the Levine, and DeRozan. They're all getting a little older. It's a back-to-back. What do you want to do with this one? Another one where it feels like I'm okay if these guys land in my lineup, but if they're not in my lineup, we're talking Cleveland here. One of the slowest teams in the league and one of the best defenses, depending on who is in or out. So it's not the easiest of matchups for them.
Yeah, so I put on my coaching hat here. How do I score against a slow pace, strong interior defense in the Cavs? And I'm looking at Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. So the rules that I've set in 50 to 20 or less lineups is I'll have exposure to Zach LaVine and DeRozan, and I won't have them in the same lineup. But I'm not sure that on a slate this big we see coinciding ceilings to be optimal. So I think that's the proper way, or at least that's my way to attack this. And if you look at the last couple games, these DeRozan 50s and 70s coincided with LaVine's 30s. And then last night, LaVine had a big game. It was a down game for DeRozan. So that's not always going to be how it plays out. But I do think on average, the LaVine ceiling and DeRozan ceiling doesn't necessarily coexist, particularly against one of the slowest pace, stronger defenses. So just give me a little bit of those guys, and I don't want any overlap.
Yeah, if we look at DraftKings, nobody is over 7% in the optimal, and there's really no leverage from this team. They're all projected to be they're appropriately owned. It's almost perfectly in line with their optimal. That is from the Chicago side here. I want to just see what it is on FanDuel, because sometimes somebody will fall through the pricing. No, it's almost the same story there as well. So, all righty. Well, let's have some fun here. Let's talk a little BetMGM, because I want to tell everybody how to get 2 free months of Stokastic Premium, as well as a risk-free $1,000 bet. If I don't have your attention now, we'll start paying attention, because I'm going to talk about it some more. So this is a fun way to get in the door with Stokastic if you aren't already a member here. If you are a member, then this is a great way to add 2 months to your membership. So all you got to do is be logged into your Stokastic account. You don't have to have an active subscription. You do need to have an active Stokastic account. This is important. When you're logged in as Stokastic, you can go click on the link that's below us here in the YouTube channel, or you can go to the promotions page on Stokastic and click on the BetMGM page. When you're there, you'll see the BetMGM button. You click on that. It'll take you over to BetMGM. It's tagging you with our URL. You're not going to see that, but that's what it's doing. Don't close out. Don't go to another window. You need to come in on our URL, or you're not going to get the 2 free months. So that's very, very important. Second, you create your BetMGM account. You got to deposit at least $10. You make your first paid bet of $10 or more. When that settles, they're going to give you, it'll be in your BetMGM. They'll give you a notification, and it'll also be in your BetMGM inbox. It's on your login page. You'll get a promo code that will get you 2 free months of Stokastic access. How do I know all this? Because I did the risk-free bet for $1,000. I lost. But then after that, I got 5 $200 bets. So essentially what they do, your risk-free bet is up to $1,000. So whatever your first bet is, that's going to be your risk-free bet. You want to make it 10, you want to make it 20, you want to make it 100, that's fine. If you end up losing, they're going to divide it by 5 and give you the 4 largest bets they can evenly, and then just put the remainder on the other. And then you got 7 or 8 days to use them all. I had 5 $200 bets credits is what came back to me. So it works. It's pretty slick. It's a lot of fun over there. But definitely check that out, because by the way, this 2 months thing, that part's going to get knocked down shortly. This is a huge offer that we've been putting forth. Basically, you're getting 2 months of Stokastic essentially for free. So for those of you traveling, remember, you can always sign up for BetMGM and make a wager if you're in a state where it is legal, even if you reside in a state where wagering is not illegal. It's all about where you are when you're placing your bet. But check that out with BetMGM. All right, Gun, let's get back to the analysis here. We have 5 more games, I think. Now I've lost my run sheet. Let me get back to it. If we can hear the mouse wheel scurrying along. Oh, this is a really good game. Brooklyn favored by 6.5 in Charlotte. 237 implied point total here. This one has fantasy goodness written all over it. So the key things that we have here is we're waiting to hear what is up with Ben Simmons. He is currently questionable with an illness. If he is out, that makes Nick Claxton an amazing play, because the Charlotte front court, one of the worst rebounding and worst defensive front courts in the league. If Simmons is in, I'd look to both of them and see what their player props are going to be for rebounds. If they're getting something around 6.5, I would take the over. To me, it doesn't even matter which one. You can put them both in part of a same game parlay. That's how bad of a rebounding team Charlotte is. But we're going to have to wait and see what happens with Simmons there. Edmund Sumner is questionable with a sore thumb. Joe Harris is out. On the other side, Charlotte's without Kelly Oubre. He's dealing with the sore hand. And then Dennis Smith Jr. He missed a whole bunch of games with an ankle injury. They're just kind of doing injury maintenance on him. He's questionable now. It's going to be how much soreness is there from his recent games, etc. So start us off here on the Brooklyn side. Do you think Simmons is in tonight? Do you have a gut feel? Does the vaunted Gundacker trick knee? What's your trick knee saying?
That feeling in my bad knee with the storm
Yes.
coming through. No, I don't have it was a midday questionable on an illness. That's a coin flip. So what I would say is in his potential absence, I would be pretty interested in TJ Warren on DraftKings at 4,400. Already something I'm interested in. This Hornets front court has been a glorious matchup all year. So I think that would just make Warren look and project like a even better value with stabilized minutes. Claxton's an interesting click, kind of like the Allens and the Mobleys where he falls. I think he's worth having as a stocking stuffer, and because of the matchup, does have a ceiling. And if Ben Simmons was down, perhaps even a couple more of those hustle stats go his way. But guys like Simmons and Claxton, I worry about their offense a lot, so I do give them way more volatility than the average center in this spot. Kyrie and KD, those are two guys I want. I think unlike I don't know. I'm struggling whether or not I want to prevent overlap between these two, especially on DraftKings. I think Kyrie is pretty soft. I could see a dueling 50s, dueling 40 and 60. So I probably get to them just because of how concentrated their usage is. For instance, there's only one other player on this team that I have that could be playing tonight, averaging over double-digit points per game. That's the center. So that's how tight this offense is. It runs to those two. So give me Kyrie, give me KD exposure, and then I'm in on Warren no matter what. If Simmons is down on DraftKings, Warren looks like a guy I'm going to get in trouble with. And that's my read on the Nets here. I don't really dabble with much else.
Yeah, someone was asking, I'm sorry, I lost the chat because I went to look it up. Yuta Watanabe, there's plenty of other options out there today. He is 3,100 on DK. I understand it. Right now, we're projecting him for 16 fantasy points. I don't know how much extra he gets. He's been incredibly consistent in the low 20s minutes for like his last 11 games. So even if someone's out, everybody's fully healthy. I think he's probably been passed by Warren in the pecking order here. He may lose a little bit when Joe Harris is back. This doesn't seem like a good one. They need to be down a couple players before I can get to Watanabe.
I would say keep an eye on what the starting lineup is, because I think if Ben Simmons doesn't play, it doesn't necessarily mean TJ Warren's going to start. They can move Royce O'Neal everywhere. And it's not a massive bump, but just looking at Royce O'Neal's correlation to Ben Simmons, with Ben Simmons, Royce O'Neal is about a 0.6 fantasy point per minute. Without Ben Simmons, 0.75. Doesn't sound like a lot, but he is live to play 35 to 38 minutes, and that could add up. And then you consider how soft the matchup is. So I would definitely get there before I got to Utah Watanabe. But also, like I said, that's contingent on what Coach Vaughn throws out as the starting lineup.
All right. How are you feeling about the Chicago side of things? Charlotte. We know they're going to play fast. We know they're going to play loose. We know they're not going to play defense. Got to save that energy for offense. LaMelo Ball always stands out. What else are we looking at? What happens with Oubre is an interesting trickle-down effect. And then who's their big man? Williams, right? Is it?
Oh my God! Don't get me started on that.
What are we doing with that? That's some tantalizing fantasy upside there with Williams. Not really on FanDuel. It's so hard to give up a center spot. But what did he have? Like 30 fantasy points in 20 minutes or some ungodly number. I don't have it in front of me right now, but he just went off in the other game. He may be surpassing Richardson, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, he right now, or at least in that last game, Mark Williams was the backup center to Mason Plumlee, and that wasn't really expected because Nick Richards was back. But like you said, now we've seen reports suggesting that Williams is this backup and not the third option. One game sample size, is that, life from now on for them? Maybe. I still think it's worth taking that shot at this price if we just have that hunch, because he was very, very productive in.
Yeah, 7 for 7, 3 of 5 from the line, 13 boards, 2 blocks, 2 steals, 17 points. He did all of that in 21 minutes. That's a week worth of games for you to watch.
Right. And also, like, remember, the Thunder are a glorious matchup. So a lot went right for him. That type of efficiency is wholly unsustainable for a 21-minute backup. But I get it if you got that hunch and you want to run it back and you still think Nick Richards would be down. I'm not that brazen to get there in like 20 or less, but in 150, I might drop a percent or two on him. But I don't have it's all one game reaction, potentially overreaction, that I would like to feel a little bit more confident about putting a public statement on what we expect from him going forward. But it is certainly somebody you got to keep an eye on now because of what he just did.
All right. But back to reality. To reality, there are core rotation players that we can mostly count on. Are any of them appealing to you?
Yeah. So along with that Mark Williams thing, we kind of got an okey doke on Kelly Oubre, who was finally back, but then he got hurt again after 14 minutes. So it went back to him being out, and then you lean a lot on Terry Rozier, LaMelo Ball as your guard rotation. So someone we need to watch now is we know Oubre's out, but we don't know for sure if Dennis Smith Jr. is down. And before Dennis Smith Jr. was out, he was playing without LaMelo, so his minutes per game is probably higher than what they will be going forward. But in the instance that he is active and Oubre's down, maybe the minutes for Ball and Rozier have a little bit more volatility. Especially, we know LaMelo Ball does have a history of not keeping his hands to himself, and he's going to go against a high usage guard like Kyrie. There's certain pathways to failure. So just keep an eye on the Dennis Smith Jr. news. I would still assume he's out until he's actually in, but he has been floating as a Q2O in the last couple of games. But LaMelo Ball is the guy that if we paint a picture that the Hornets are going to be competitive in this game, he is the captain, but he's appropriately priced now on DraftKings. But we've seen him pay off this price tag. So interest is warranted, but I think we can't have short-term memory with him. There is some volatility that comes with LaMelo Ball at this price.
Absolutely. But God, they're so fun to watch. This game's going to be on the short list of things I want to watch.
The Charlotte Hornets home announce crew is, I think, the best in all of sports. There's so much energy. It's so entertaining that I just want them to have a good team just to hear those guys call, meaningful games late in the year.
Yeah, well, it's what's funny because when DFS kind of first started, they usually only had one set. A lot of times there was only just one 7:00 game. Things have morphed over the years with the different TV deals and stuff. And it was almost always Charlotte's. Like literally you'd be watching them because it was the only thing on until the next wave of games even tipped off. So it's like, oh, Al Jefferson and Kemba Walker. It's like the only time you'd ever watch it would be the first 20 minutes until the other games tipped off. But it seemed like at least 2 or 3 times a week they were just like, that's the only one that's on. So, all righty, back to current day. We've got 25 minutes here until we're handing things over to Live Before Lock. So that will be a fun one to enjoy there. Producer Chris says that's the most one-sided broadcast team that there is. I don't know. The Bucks, pretty lopsided. They have a good team. Drew Gooden for the Wizards. Oh my God, he is an unapologetic homer. I think he played for the Wizards for like 40 games or something like that.
I like Hawk Harrelson for the White Sox was pretty biased. And the Mariners guy is kind of biased, but he's a fun bias. I love him.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to
good times. I'm looking. I sent T McBee a message this morning. I stumbled across a clip of Jared Kelenic hitting a home run off of Shohei Ohtani. I was like, wow, maybe I shouldn't be so down on him. Then the announcer's like, yeah, it was his 17th of the year. I'm like, I didn't realize it. Well, maybe he's not a complete abject failure. And I sent it off to Terry just because it's like, I miss baseball.
I do.
Oh, all righty. Let's continue along here. We'll head on to our next game. Also a fun one. We've got Detroit 5-point underdogs going into Minnesota, 233 and a half implied point total here, or total. You've got Killian Hayes is out with a suspension. Isaiah Livers out with a shoulder injury. This is a back-to-back for Detroit. And a 3-4. They lost last night, 132-118 in Charlotte, but that was partly they in Chicago. Sorry, not Charlotte. Now I've called Charlotte Chicago and Chicago. Great. At least I'm being fair here. My abbreviations, CHI and CHA, there shouldn't be an issue when I look at these. I don't know. I need glasses, Gun. I need glasses. In any event, Pistons are kind of intriguing. They're going against the Timberwolves. Of course, no Karl Anthony Towns, no Jordan McLaughlin. McLaughlin's out with a calf injury. Rudy Gobert was out last night with a non-COVID related illness. He's questionable tonight. Anthony Edwards also questionable with a non-COVID related illness. And then you've got Slow-Mo, Kyle Anderson, questionable with the sore back. Slow-Mo missed quite a few games there. He sort of is a linchpin factor for Naz Reid, because unlike when Kyle Anderson was kind of in his San Antonio days, where he kind of go small forward and he kind of play a bigger two guard, with this team, he's sliding in and playing more power forward minutes. And then even when Karl Anthony Towns was there, he would kind of take the center minutes when Gobert would go out, and he'd be in there with the closing unit. So he's kind of playing more in the front court. That blocks Naz Reid. But now we got these three guys questionable. There's going to be a lot of moving parts on this one. My guess is Gobert is out. If he's out, then we're going back to Naz Reid for sure. But that's the only one I know how to make a reaction on, because the others have different trickle down effects. Start us out on the Detroit side. They're relatively clean aside from Killian Hayes and Livers being out.
Yeah. So yesterday, a lot of us were bracing to load up on Alec Burks, and we still did. But then they threw out a starting lineup that included Saddiq Bey. And today, looking at our ownership projections, it looks like we're ready to play Saddiq Bey, especially on DraftKings.
You mean 4K Saddiq Bey? That's what you mean.
Yeah.
6,000 on FanDuel. We're not playing him over there.
Yeah, I appreciate the FanDuel price point, and I don't even know that. I don't know. I know we've seen the game. Remember the Saddiq Bey and who's the other kid when there was only
or was one of
Diallo,
yeah, Diallo, whichever Diallo it was. Yeah,
my goodness, was that a week? Anyway, but yeah,
never to be seen again. Either Diallo after that.
It's still on the same team, but I think
I know.
Saddiq Bey certainly has a strategic decision that you can make on DraftKings at that ownership. If Hatfield is going to have him, certainly can create instant uniqueness from the field by not having him. It's not like he's killing the projection. He's looking like a moderate value. So it makes sense, but I think this is an easy spot to perhaps find alternatives. Alec Burks, another guy that I'm still ready to take chances on. I know the minutes for him last night were not what I was hoping for with the amount of exposure I had to him, but still per minute, especially on DraftKings at 4,500, 30 plus fantasy points is a realistic range of outcome for him. So I'm more interested in Alec Burks on a per minute basis than I am a Saddiq Bey. And you can make the case that Burks off the bench is more lucrative than Burks starting alongside Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey, in the absence of Killian Hayes and Cade Cunningham, leads the team in per minute usage about 31%, but he's only converting about a fantasy point per minute 106 on DraftKings. So it's not blowing us away. So he's still worth getting to. I do think the Pistons, though we have the suspension with Hayes, they're still healthy. They were in a 10-man rotation last night, and it was just like 30 minutes or less for everyone. So no one's blowing me away specifically, but I think in a blender, you could see a 6K Bojan put up 30 plus. You could see Ivy do that. You could see the 4K Bay convert but I think the guy that I like the most for a ceiling game points per dollar is Alec Burks off the bench, and hopefully he stays off the bench and keeps his ownership lower than Sadiq Bey.
All right, chat's having some fun here. Yes, they said Kyle Anderson, but he played for Memphis. Oh, I know he played for Memphis. He played for San Antonio before he played for Memphis. He's been in the league for a while. And then someone was saying, why don't we go in the same order as DK for games? Well, Laffy, I know, gets his run sheets from DK because he just that's usually what he's looking at. I'm not looking at DK when I make my run sheets. So you're going to usually, though not always, get them in the ESPN order. And I think what they do is when games are at the same time, they do it alphabetical by home team, I think is what they do. But if I'm doing NBA or NFL, I'm usually just looking at that. So that's why it's not, but that it doesn't mean one way is right or wrong. But and even then, it's not always in that order. But we shall see. But those are good questions. Good questions. Anything else you want to discuss on this one? Because our next game is going to have a lot of talking points too.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, the Timberwolves have a laundry list of in, out, potentially questionable.
The Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, I know the live before lock guys will crush the news on that. Obviously, if Gobert's down, we're looking right back to Naz Reid, underpriced. Kind of wish that we got the Sadiq Bey treatment for his price on FanDuel because, man, is this guy super efficient in the minutes that he does play. But everyone else, I think it's appropriately priced. I think there's a little bit of meat on the bone for D-Russ's price, but no warm and fuzzies. Same with Anthony Edwards. These guys at these price points, there's immediate pivots elsewhere, but there's a massive trickle-down effect of, if nothing else, just minutes that are being represented in the Gobert, Edwards, and Anderson. And I still don't know how the Andersons got tickets to the game, but they did. Also,
the best is when I made that joke on a show, one of our first shows we did with you, and it wasn't even, it was for baseball, and it wasn't even related for it. And afterwards, you're like, "Oh, you took my joke," and I had no idea. And I was like, because that was the commercial, and that commercial's been off the air for like 5 years too.
Yeah,
the Andersons got tickets to the game. How did they get tickets to the game?
it was my bit for Ryan Anderson, and then he left. But the bit was so nice that I did it. I got bits.
You couldn't
for
let it go, right?
Yeah,
I
had to stick it.
Couldn't let it go.
EMac. Why do we have over 1,700 viewers and less than 300 likes, man?
Oh,
I feel like
that's people not going to have a good time tonight. That's people not getting a New Year's kiss tonight. Oh. That's people not seeing their currently winnings going up tonight. Hit that like button. Make all of those things I just said disappear and have a good night. Make them float away like bubbles with champagne. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. You know what you can also do? I'm feeling generous. I'm going to give everybody who's not yet a Stokastic member a way to see all NBA content free for 3 days. Just go to the description in the YouTube chat or on the landing page below us here, and you'll see a link that says 3 days of NBA free. You click on that, create your Stokastic account, and you're going to get the keys to the kingdom for all NBA tools, projections, Discord, everything for 3 days. The 1v1 tool, the lineup generator, the boom bust, the ownership, the player projections, everything free for 3 days. There you go. Look at that. Happy New Year, everybody.
There's a fun feature YouTube added to the like button. When you click, and this is not, I'm not making this up. When you click the thumbs up, it splashes a certain color. Click it and see what the color. Let me know what the color is in chat. I got purple just now.
Oh, I got yellow.
See? Huh. What's your color, chat? Let me know.
Yeah, there we go. That's actually cool. I don't want to click it again. I got green this time. There we go. Or maybe it's a turquoise. We shall see. Yeah. All righty. Back to this is a game. Philadelphia. They were 5.5 point favorites. I think the line's now 3. The guess is James Harden is probably going to be going to strip clubs, so he needs his energy. There's a decent chance he sits on this one. It is a back-to-back. We know that, where are my notes here? We know that Tyrese Maxey is going to be out. He missed 18 games with a fractured foot, but this is a back-to-back for him. And then PJ Tucker, also potential injury management. This is the team lost last night, 127-116 to New Orleans. So this seems like if you're going to rest somebody, this would be the time to do it. If Harden is in, he looks like a phenomenal play. Joel Embiid looks like an outstanding play today as well. There are, it's really only Claxton and one or two others that are vying for that center only eligibility like Embiid. So the opportunity cost of going with Embiid is not a bad way to do things tonight. You're not giving up on a lot of other point per dollar plays here. How do you want to handle this side? And do you think it feels like Harden's going to be out for this one?
Yeah, 3.5 point spread against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Tinfoil hat. I feel like I would lean towards Harden being down with numbers like that. So in the potential chance that happens, Joel Embiid this season without James Harden on the court, a 39.5% usage rate, 1.6 fantasy point per minute on both FanDuel and DraftKings. That's just crazy. And this is about as good of a matchup as you're going to get. The Thunder are really, really, really weak. And right now, really inexperienced, even more so than usual, with that front court being Jalen Williams, Mike Muscala, guys like that. So Joel Embiid should be able to feast at will, no matter what. So he could be the play of the day. Right now, I have Luka projected more for more fantasy points, but I think there's a good chance that if I took Harden out of the model, Embiid could usurp Luka Doncic and the spread stays closer. So I might rank Embiid over Luka tonight in my exposures.
I just had to look up and see who R-Truth was.
Ron, the Truth Killings. What's up?
Yes, he's almost my age.
He's old, but he carries himself so well.
Yeah, he looks pretty cut there. No, someone was saying they almost got hit on, or they got hit on. Someone was hollering, the clerk was hollering at him at the store, but they said she looked like R-Truth.
Oof. Oof.
Hey, not that there's anything wrong with that. Sometimes, different strokes for different folks. You mentioned the litany of injuries there for OKC. James Robinson Earl out with the foot, Pokusevski broken leg. OKC is 10-8 at home. This could be a spirited game, especially if Harden is out. This is one that could be. We could see some fantasy goodness for a lot of different players here, and that makes this really interesting. Over his last 8 games, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has at least 42 fantasy points in this stretch. He's averaging 37 minutes, 22 field goal attempts, converting at 51%. In this time frame, he's averaging 33 points, 5.5 boards, 5.5 assists, and 2.8 combined blocks and steals. You're getting Josh Giddey seeing a little bit more on the offensive side, or consistently on the offensive side, in addition to his own all-around game. We're seeing that price go up from there. You've got Trey Mann, who could see boosted responsibility. He looks like he's back on the favorable side of things, but who knows what Mark Dagnall's going to do, because he seems to thrive on subterfuge and not wanting the opponents to know anything possible, because God forbid they get an advantage over a team that doesn't even have a 500 record. It's frustrating. Do you want me to tell you how I really feel? I think I just did.
Yeah, I mean, we just took a walk.
SGA all the way. Jalen Williams, no, not Jalen Williams. The other Jalen Williams, that Jalen Williams. They're both okay, actually. But it's hard to get overly excited outside of SGA. There's some mix and match potential here. I don't dislike people, but you could see a plus or minus 8 minutes on any one of our player projections for anybody that's in the bottom 4 or not in the top 4 of this team, that's a big number. That's like plus or minus 20% on your playing time.
Yeah, I think if we're looking for minute stability, it's SGA, Giddey, Dort. Everything else is wide open. And then I was a little light. If Harden was down, Melton, Tobias, Shake Milton all look like fine plays. So I might be way more exposed to this game than I want to be, but we'll see.
All right, 2 to go. We got 10 minutes. The Pellies at Memphis. Pellies 6-point underdogs here. It's a 3-4 as well as back-to-back. They beat Philly last night, 127-116. Brandon Ingram's still out. I think we're almost up to game 20 now. It's been quite some time, at least 15. Larry Nance Jr. also out with a sore neck. You've got Trey Murphy questionable with an ankle. Memphis mostly healthy. Just Santi Aldama is on the injury report with an ankle issue. Memphis is 13-1 at home. This feels like a strong opportunity to look towards Memphis here, even when you're even laying the points. How do you feel about this game, Gun? I won't do any other lead-in since we're short on time.
Yeah. Just to catch up, Luka is active tonight, but
Okay,
this is a juicy enough total that I want some exposure to. But when you start looking at guys, I think 9K McCollum's officially priced, and we talked about 9K. That's a down payment on a brand new Joel Embiid in a great matchup. If that opens up, Zion Williamson, same thing. I think those guys are officially priced. So there's not much in this game that I feel like I can unfold and feel like this is a great spot to be at. There's a little bit of leverage, I guess, to be had here, but I'm not that enthralled with the Pelicans lineup through and through. And then the Grizzlies, kind of same thing. You mentioned Santi Aldama, the only real tangible questionable on this roster. And now we're looking at a pretty healthy Grizzlies team. Morant, Bane, Brooks, Jaren Jackson, those guys all have ability to kind of vulture each other in terms of usage. I think John Morant is at the top of the podium in interest for ceiling. But yeah, not much here is giving me the warm and fuzzies. Jaren Jackson is 6,400 on DraftKings. I do think has point per dollar upside. But a guy that's as block centric as Jaren Jackson, he also turns those blocks into fouls, and a guy with the usage of Zion Williamson, especially without Brandon Ingram, there's a real chance that foul problems are in his future. So I guess if you were invested in Jaren Jackson and mass multi-entry and Santi Aldama was out, maybe hedge a little bit with 4,500 Brandon Clark exposure and just make sure there's no overlap. But for the most part, I'm pretty lukewarm overall on a 236 total, which seems kind of crazy.
It does. That's why I kind of threw out the betting angle for this. Again, this is one where we need one more thing to be missing for people to start getting value here. So that's it. It's just kind of, we've seen status quo for enough games that the salary algorithms have captured everything that's going on right now. So again, solid game. Could one player from each of these guys or one player from each of these teams be in the optimal lineup tonight? Yeah, absolutely. I don't know which one. I don't even have an inkling as to which one it could be. So we'll leave it at that. Moving on to our final game, we've got the Miami Heat. They're playing the altitude back-to-back. They lost last night in Denver, 124-119. I just want to make sure. We've got Jimmy Butler out for rest. We've got Dwayne Dedmon. He's dealing with, I believe, a quad issue, and then I think he's got a non-COVID related illness. Oh, I'm sorry. He has been moved into the health and safety protocol. I guess he had a positive test there. Caleb Martin is questionable. He's dealing with a sore quad. Victor Oladipo did not play last night. He's available tonight. The Jazz also played last night. They lost in Sacramento, 126-125. I want to call out that the Jazz are 12-5 at home. I think that's another decent place where you can lay down a little wager. I would happily give the Heat 4.5 points tonight, especially when they're going to be shorthanded. Again, these are some things you could use over there on BetMGM. If you're looking for a bet to go make over there with your $10, there's two I would look at. I'd lay the points, or give the points, take the home favorite in the Memphis game or the Utah game. Run us through this one. What do you want to do with the Heat now that Butler are out? And then, damn it, but the Jazz are basically neutral unless they miss somebody as well with Kelly Olynyk back.
Yeah, I guess so. Jimmy Butler's absence, we're replacing 35 minutes of 23 usage, 22 points a game. The matchup in the Utah Jazz, I generally focus on their front court. I believe they give up the most points in the paint per game, if not the most, top two. And when I run an on-off court tool, Bam Adebayo leads the split of Lowry, Hero, Adebayo on, Butler off, and usage at 27%. So there's a chance that Bam Adebayo against a premier matchup when it comes to scoring could be a unique play at the price point. 8,500 on FanDuel, 89 on DK. Maybe Embiid ownership kind of pushes him away. But I'm kind of interested. And I think yesterday Jovic got sent to the G League. So not that was going to impact Adebayo too much. But I think
it robbed us of the Jovic matchup. Disappointing as hell. I wanted to talk about that with Greg on the show last night, and it's like, oh, he's not going to play.
I read a quote. They're both from Serbia, I believe, and he was looking forward to it. And then, of course, the day he gets to go see like your idol. Hey, you're going to the G League, kid. What a troll! Like the Heat. It's not like they couldn't.
No, it's Spoelstra. He's just an evil genius.
Yeah, right.
And Pat Riley. They do that on purpose. This character building exercise. This is all it is.
Tyler Hero, 9K on DraftKings, hefty price to pay. I think easy to go elsewhere at that price point. I think a sub 8K on FanDuel, you can make a case. And then Kyle Lowry on both DraftKings and FanDuel, a true, weird to say, triple double threat in a split like this. Hero, $1.25 fantasy points per minute on DraftKings in this split. Lowry just 0.9. Big minutes there, and Lowry and Hero also rocking a 21% assist rate each. So maybe wouldn't be the worst thing to correlate them with Adebayo, who also has a 17% assist rate. So I would probably set a group where I got one of Lowry or Hero with Adebayo, or I wouldn't want both with Adebayo, I guess I would say, and then let her rip. But yeah, that's how I would attack the Heat.
Yeah, and then on the other side, Utah, they are really neutral at this point in time with everybody healthy. It is a back-to-back for them. We could see somebody out. Who knows? But that's a 9:00 game. I see we got some Cleveland news here. We're going to let Live Before Lock handle that because I want to do a quick demonstration here with producer Chris and show you guys the lineup generator. So this is one of the things you get access to here with those 3 free days. So we go to the lineup generator, and I'm doing my own here, but let's click on the DK main. And so this gives you the choice of slate. So we're building out the cash game, but we've got the tournament. So we can click on tournament GPP, and then it gives you some choices here. You can take any kind of lineup. You can do a chalky, a balanced build, a contrarian. Even when you do the chalky, they're not as chalky as we would build them by hand, is in my general opinion. But let's pick a chalky for now. And you click on that, and it's going to build out a lineup for you. And what this does is it takes all of the stochastic information, the leverage tool, the boom bust, everything, and it puts it into these lineups. Am I going to click this and get the same lineup as somebody else? Highly, highly unlikely. There's over 10 on the standard NBA slate. There's over 10,000 lineup combinations before you even start getting really weird. And we've got it set up that it shouldn't happen. So if you had 10 people in a room and you each clicked it 50 times, you'd still unlikely anybody would get a duplicate in it. So don't worry about that aspect. We thought about that, but this is something that's cool. And then it tells you up at the top what's the projected fantasy points or the median outcome, what's the ownership product there. You can look down at the bottom. It says, it's telling you, yeah, this is kind of chalky, but it's got a good projection. Then you can hit save or discard. If we hit save, what that does is it's going to save that. As you see down at the bottom, you can save up to 20 lineups. So you can discard these. You can bring in new lineups, etc. You can influence which players you'd like to see, but you can also download all your saved lineups as a CSV that you can then copy into your DraftKings, your Yahoo, or your FanDuel CSV and upload them directly to the site. So this is really, really cool. So we have those 3 sites, those 3 DFS companies are supported both for NBA and for NFL. The NFL one has a few more bells and whistles. You can start saying which stacks do you want to see more of, etc. So this isn't a full-on optimizer, but for those of you that are like, I'm only going to build 10 or 20 lineups, this is a great way to do it. You can build it out quickly. You can kind of see what's there. It does everything for you, and you can take 5-10 seconds, look at something, and run through it. I think this is I'm doing 20 lineups on FanDuel tonight. I'm using the last of my Santa bucks. I think I may build them out using the lineup generator just to see what happens.
Let's go.
There we are. All right, that's all we got, but you're going to get Greg Ehrenberg and Matt LaMarca coming up shortly. You guys can follow Gun everywhere at Gundacker. You can find me at EMac DFS, and of course, it is Stokastic_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody landing on the Stokastic Hall of Fame this week, and we got some big ones. You want to get involved? We got you. You want to get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, $120 value? You want to get inducted into the Hall of Fame, have us do all the bragging for you, and see your name in bright lights? We got you. Just go to Stokastic.com/avatar. Download the profile pic at Stokastic.com/avatar and use it wherever it is you play. DraftKings, FanDuel, doesn't matter. When you win, finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Doesn't matter how much or how little. Just meet those qualifications and you tweet at Stokastic HOF. You're getting the free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, and you're getting right here inducted into the Hall of Fame. We kick it off in a big way with Short Gamer TV. Merry Christmas to me at Stokastic Hall of Fame. Monster $100,000 win there. Little showdown action between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Las Vegas Raiders. Our biggest one of the week. Congrats to you, Short Gamer TV. And then our own Jake Hari had Lane Peterson crossed off in my crunches yesterday until Slim Cliffy, great NHL analyst, you should pay attention to what he does, made me rethink it on the NHL show. Instead, I included him, and it worked out at 0.77 ownership. Little 5K first place win for Jake there. And Kevin Cutler, let's see my name in lights. They're in it, fella. Laffy D, best tools in the trade by far. First out of 397,000. Makes the Eagles' loss easier to swallow. I get. For you, it does. Not for me, but congrats, Kevin. That's an awesome win out of a massive field. And Jansen White had my best finish ever in a 150 max tonight. Stokastic Hall of Fame. Thanks for constantly helping me improve how I play. And he mentions all the NBA boys. 125 to Jansen White right there in a 150 max. Followed up by TWA 4CY? Twafercy? I don't know. Thanks for all you guys do day in and day out with a $400 victory there. We'll keep it going to Shelly B. 500, only second day using Fantasy Cruncher. I knew I was going to lose or break even on the small tournaments like I usually do. Then I see that I'm first place in the tournament. Like, what? Thank you. Congrats, Shelly. That's awesome. Nice to find a little surprise like that. And then free month of Stokastic Plus for first place win courtesy of Stokastic Hall of Fame. Yes, please. Thanks to Greg and Eric, even though supposedly he's off Twitter now for a short time. Spencer getting the win there, getting the free month as well, and got my first NBA takedown in the $5 single entry last night. Listen to you guys daily. Thank you. Who is that? Rocksteady247 with the $500 win there. And we close it out with 2 more here. We got Michael Urban. Thanks to the Stokastic fam for all the great content. Not sure this qualifies me for the free month, but wanted to say thanks either way. Keep up the great work, gang. Congrats, Michael. A little $550 win there. And Diesel, OZB. Forgot to post this, but hit this on Thursday night. Forgot about, or how about that free month? A little $750 in the 10K Thursday NBA shot. Congratulations to all of you guys. Remember, Stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stokastic Hall of Fame if you're rocking the avatar. Get the free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Get up here. You've now all been inducted, and welcome back to you guys who have been here before.
Brunson just rolled out. What is happening, everybody? Welcome to another Stokastic NBA Live Before Lock. It is New Year's. This is going to be the final show on the YouTube channel of 2022. Of course, I would be hosting it. Just statistically, there's a good chance I would be hosting it because I host like 90% of these across every sport now. But there is nobody I'd rather bring in the New Year's with than the one and only Matt LaMarca. As you guys come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And by the way, if you guys checked out in between shows, we've been running a Hall of Fame segment. If you guys want to be inducted into the Stokastic Hall of Fame, all you have to do is finish at the top of a GPP and make sure that you have the Stokastic avatar as your handle when you're on DraftKings or FanDuel, and then tweet at us at StokasticHOF so we know that you won, and then we could induct you into the Hall of Fame. You could join all of the other legends that we have that have been inducted, that have their gold jackets, and also comes with 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. So check that out if you guys have not gotten involved already. Matt, how are you feeling about the new year? How was 2022?
I got to tell you, I'm feeling incredibly old because I legitimately forgot it's New Year's Eve. And that is both incredibly eye-opening and depressing at the same time, because nothing's changing for me. I'm doing the same things I do every Saturday night, which is working. But yeah, hopefully 2023 is a good one. I can't complain about 2022. I had a very good year. So hopefully we can keep it rolling.
Yeah, and everybody in chat looks like they are. We got some people in chat also. Like the ranked depositors in there saying, "Shit, I'm 30, ain't doing shit tonight." You're playing DFS and you're hanging out with us. That's what you guys are doing. This is the community. This is where things are at. And just as we were going to start, Matt, really in true DFS fashion, it doesn't give a shit that it's the New Year's. We're literally getting counted down. Chris, who's producing tonight, he's like, "You guys are going to be live in 5 seconds." And I get an alert on my phone. Jalen Brunson's been ruled out. And then only a couple minutes before that, Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, they were also ruled out. So let's start with, it doesn't really matter which one we start with, but we might as well start with Jalen Brunson because it literally broke 5 seconds ago. I was in the middle of updating stuff for Cleveland. He gets ruled out. And I go, all right, well, this is a fruitless effort trying to update lineups because of the never-ending avalanche of news. But with Jalen Brunson out, what can we expect from the Knicks? Who's going to benefit?
I mean, you got to start with Emmanuel quickly. The workload that he has played in the past 2 games is just pure vintage Tom Thibodeau, like old school Tom Thibodeau before he really started to care about minutes even slightly. He played 50 minutes in a overtime game and 43 minutes and change in a regulation contest in their past 2. So those were both without Brunson and without RJ Barrett, who's still out of the lineup. I think you can probably project him for, I might not go overboard, but 38 minutes seems very reasonable. And we all know that Quickly is a really good per minute producer. He's at 0.93 DraftKings points per minute for the year. I would imagine those numbers are higher with Brunson and Barrett off the floor. And he gets a great matchup with the Rockets. So I think Quickly is a easy now lock and load play at 5,700 on DraftKings. Julius Randle definitely benefits as well. So does Miles McBride. But Quickly to me is like the guy on the Knicks that you kind of need to have tonight.
Yeah, and I'm pulling up some of the on-off court numbers with Brunson and Barrett both out. And, Quickly was a massive chalk play in the Knicks last slate, and he absolutely crushed. He came through. And there was a narrative I was seeing in chat on that slate where people are saying, like, hey, Quickly isn't as good when he starts as when he comes off the bench. Here's the difference, though. You've got Barrett and Brunson out for this team. So I know earlier in the year, we saw some times where Quickly moved into the starting lineup and maybe it didn't go as well. But here are the numbers for him this year when he's playing on the court with Brunson and Barrett both off. 23%, a 25% usage rate, and scores over a fantasy point per minute, 39.44 DraftKings points per 36 minutes. And then talking about the point that you had made before, this is about as good of a matchup as possible against the Houston Rockets. They play at a fast pace. They're absolutely garbage on defense. So Quickly is going to be somebody who's extremely, extremely difficult to get away from. He is $5,700 on DraftKings and projected for, he was projected for a ton of ownership even before we saw Brunson rolled out. Like just the idea that Barrett was going to be ruled out, he was already going to be popular. FanDuel is $6,700. Even at $6,700, I don't have any kind of an issue getting to him. We're still waiting on ownership updates, but I would presume he's going to be in the high 20s, maybe even low 30% range in terms of ownership once this all gets updated. And then as for the other players who benefit, you mentioned it, Julius Randle this year. When he's played with Brunson and Barrett off the court, 31% usage, 53 DraftKings points per 36 minutes. And then for FanDuel purposes, that equates to 49 fantasy points per 36 minutes. Either way, a fine pay-up option that we're looking at there. Julius Randle, $9,900 on FanDuel power forward and center eligibility. On DraftKings, 10-1 only power forward eligible. So it's not like we're looking at a 9,200 price range, but either way, he's somebody who has a pretty high priority play for me. We're going to be rostering him for sure. Are there any dart throws you're willing to take from the Knicks?
I mean, not really anybody that I'm super interested in. I mean, Miles McBride has played a ton of minutes. He's just not very good, at least from a fantasy perspective. So you can use him, right? Like I just don't know if he has a ton of ceiling. And we're getting to the point now with the value that's opening up that you're going to need to score a lot of points to win tonight. So I don't know if I want to play a guy that I don't think has like 30 points within his range of outcomes.
Yeah, and we still got a lot more players to be ruled out as well, which, there's nothing worse than this being a New Year's slate, and you also have to kind of be by your computer the entire time because of all the players that are questionable. By the way, we're about to hit on the Cavs news as well. I see we've got super chats to answer, and of course, Seth loves you. There's never a time you're on a show with me that Seth does not immediately ask us. Yeah, immediately in the Discord. Like I'm doing a show with somebody else, and Seth doesn't ask as many questions, and you're on. He'll always make sure to ask us a question. But in the Cavs news, we still need to hit on. Here are the other players that are questionable for today. James Harden is questionable. Anthony Edwards is questionable. Rudy Gobert is questionable. Obviously, Rudy Gobert being a massive one because Naz Reid might not could end up starting and then would be in just a really advantageous situation. We've seen him with crazy upside when he started at center. And then some lesser pieces, Kyle Anderson questionable, Trey Murphy questionable, Caleb Martin. I'm just curious to ask you, I have a pretty strong lead that Harden is not going to play today. Is that the case for you as well? Or do you think he plays or more up in the air?
I think it's a true 50-50. I think with Maxey out, they would like him to play. But when you look at the point spread, they're only favored by 3.5 on the road. That kind of gives a little bit of a hint that he might not be suiting up. Like I would think that if Harden and Embiid were both playing, this number would be higher than that. Honestly, I am hoping that Harden plays because I want to play Joel Embiid anyway, and I don't want to eat the mega chalk ownership, which we'll get if Harden gets ruled out.
Yeah, I'm actually not even sure because it depends when Harden gets ruled out. This is a very odd slate because in terms of Eastern time, we have 4 games that lock at 7, Knicks, Rockets, Dallas, San Antonio, Cleveland, Chicago, Brooklyn, Charlotte, no 7:30 Eastern time games. And then the 4 Eastern games, Detroit, Minnesota, Philly, OKC, New Orleans, Memphis, Miami, Utah. Miami, Utah is a 9 p.m. Eastern game. I do wonder if because of the way the games are spread out, it's going to inhibit people's ability to late swap. I think if Harden's out, Embiid's just going to go under-owned.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great because who just got ruled out?
Şengün was just ruled out. That came out of left field.
Okay. I mean, you look at Embiid, and to me, he is the stud that I want to pay up for on this slate. I get that Luka is available, and Luka has just been absolutely insane recently. There's no denying that fact, but look at this Thunder roster and tell me who is stopping Joel Embiid from scoring 40 points tonight. The guy has a 40+% usage rate in 4 straight games, and he's basically playing a team that doesn't have a center. Like, it could get real ugly. The Thunder are a bad rebounding team. They're a bad team in terms of points in the paint. I think it's a smash spot for Joel Embiid. And obviously, if Harden is ruled out, I will be swapping everywhere possible to get him into my lineups.
I can't run lineups. Every time I start to hit crunch on Fantasy Cruncher, something unexpected happened. Şengün wasn't even on the injury report today.
No, he was not.
And he's out. So, all right, let's catch up on some of the questions we just got. Then we have to hit on Şengün, and we still need to hit on the Cavs news, which is also massively important. But just the avalanche of news today. Our guy Seth 1374, crazy New Year's Eve, driving the wife and her boyfriend to a party. I even made them some deviled eggs for them to pass.
Ooh, wonderful.
Who benefits other than Russell if Edwards and Gobert are ruled out? So very clearly Naz Reid.
Oh yeah, obviously Naz Reid. We've seen Naz Reid smash. I honestly think his performance yesterday, he had 31 DraftKings points in just under 30 minutes. That's probably like close to his floor if he's going to see that much playing time. The guy has been that good on a per minute basis, 1.26 DraftKings points per minute over the past month. So Naz Reid, I mean, I think you can play Naz Reid anyway, but certainly with Gobert out, he becomes one of the best values on the slate. Jalen Noel would become outstanding if D'Angelo Russell doesn't play. I'm sorry, no, it's Anthony Edwards who's questionable.
Yeah.
Either way, if Jalen Noel is going to get a boost in minutes, he's definitely somebody that I want to have exposure to. He's cooled off after being sort of red hot out of the gate this year, but still a fantasy point per minute guy. He's cheap. And if we're going to give him a bump against the team that is dead last in the league in defensive efficiency, I feel pretty good about his chances of returning value.
Yeah. And then also, I'm just going to pull up the rotations that we saw last night from the Timberwolves because, and by the way, as we're getting news right here, Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, Kyle Anderson are all game time decisions. So with that game starting at, that was in 8 p.m. Eastern time start.
Correct.
That game. Yeah. So we're probably going to know, 20-ish minutes before that game starts. So after the 7 p.m. game starts, but I wouldn't be too concerned even about, and not that 30 minutes is terrible for Naz Reid or anything like that. But if memory serves correct, there was some foul issues last night. So I'm going to pull up the rotations and see what ended up happening as far as the fouls went for Naz Reid. So
he did have 5 fouls.
He did have 5. So his first stint in the first quarter, there wasn't issues there. When did Naz Reid first really get into foul trouble? It was, oh, here we go. Yeah, so Naz Reid picked up his 4th foul in the third quarter. And then that was something that ended up with him playing less minutes than he otherwise would have. So I think realistically, we're probably looking at, if he avoids foul trouble, like 35 minutes or something like that from Naz Reid. So we lost out on some playing time due to that. And I would expect the minutes to come up. And he's been a really good fantasy producer without Rudy Gobert. So some of the super chats now to get to, and then we'll hit on this news. First, shout out to Jorge Jacomi, who gifted out 20 Stokastic YouTube memberships out. Ooh. So everybody just received some of those. That's a little bit of a New Year's present from Jorge. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And we appreciate all your support, Jorge, who crushed baseball season this year and has been a big supporter of the channel. We see him in Discord all the time. Very much appreciated, Jorge. Happy New Year to you. Super chats. I know there was some in here. So there was that from Jorge. Then Devin Davis. A few DK cash game locks. So for starters, quickly, somebody you're absolutely going to need to play in cash games. Who are the other guys you would really call locks right now outside of quickly?
So I think Sadiq Bey at 4K is pretty close to a lock. I think now with the news that Karis LeVert and Kevin Love are going to start, I think both of those guys become locks. And since we have enough value, I think you want to get up to either Doncic or Embiid, whichever one fits your lineup better. I give an edge to Joel on this slate, but there's no doubt that Luka is like a fine play too. So I think you want to go up, get one of those super studs, take the Cavs value, take some of this Detroit value, either Sadiq Bey or Alec Burks at 4,500. And then Naz Reid potentially as well.
Let me see if we have ownership updated. I mean, I would only play Naz Reid in cash if Gobert is out, though. Like, I'm not going to play Naz Reid if he comes off the bench in cash games.
Yeah, probably not for cash games. I still really like him. I mean, he's 4,700. That's just too cheap. Even if Rudy Gobert does play, I still think he sees somewhere in the neighborhood of 22, 24 minutes. And that's more than enough for him to provide value. But yes, now that we have a guy like Kevin Love who's starting and is only 4,200. It does become much tougher to click Naz Reid, in a cash setting unless Gobert is out.
So I just ran some lineups with as much updated as I possibly can at this point. So we're taking into account the Cavs news, which you and I are about to hit on, which also includes, Kevin Love and Karis LeVert starting, which you mentioned. The three players that just points per dollar you absolutely have to have in cash games as far as DK goes: Kevin Love, Karis LeVert, Emmanuel Quickly. We mentioned them before, and the ownership bears that out too. We just got an ownership update from a couple of minutes ago. Actually, Chris, would you mind throwing the ownership on the screen just because it just got updated a few seconds ago? And I think this is pretty telling for cash games, where you can see who these players are that people are gravitating towards and the degree to which people are gravitating towards these players. Because Kevin Love, and we'll show it on FanDuel as well after this, Kevin Love is now 67% owned on DraftKings. Emmanuel Quickly, 67% owned. Karis LeVert, 63%. Saddiq Bey, you mentioned before, 42% owned. So I certainly think you want to have those four guys as cost-saving options. And then there's enough space to spend up. My two preferred pay-up options right now are Luka and Donovan Mitchell. I think those are the two guys that I would be most inclined to pay up for in cash games. And then if we're looking at FanDuel, in terms of the most roster players on FanDuel, Kevin Love at 4,900 is projected for 64% ownership. Quickly, even at 6,700, 55% owned on FanDuel right now. LeVert, 51%. Fairly surprising me that Jalen Noel is projected for 35% ownership. That seems a little much to me for him, especially if we end up seeing Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert play. That's a crazy amount of ownership to know if those guys are in. Desmond Bane's a little cheap at $6,100. So I get why he would be popular on FanDuel. And then you get the Mitchell and Randall there. So that rounds out the current most popular players. And then still more news to come, especially once we get those updates on James Harden, Rudy Gobert, Anthony Edwards later on in the night. And the next super chat we have is from the Claw. The Claw 28 wants to know, who is the best point guard / shooting guard on DraftKings for $6,800 and under? So he's looking to fill a guard spot for $6,800 or less. Who projects the best for me in that range?
This is one of those ones where it's going to be Quickly, but I'm assuming that he's already in your lineup.
Yeah, it is Desmond Bane for me.
6,700 or under.
68 or under.
Okay, 68 or under in the guard spot. Yep, Desmond Bane for me as well.
Yeah, so Desmond Bane, the answer is Quickly, but it's fair to assume you already have Quickly in your lineup. So that'll be the other option that we give you. So,
but I mean, I would try to. I mean, personally, I would try to steer into a different lineup construction. Like, for example, Desmond Bane right now, I have projected for around 34 points. Karis LeVert, who is, $2,500 cheaper almost, I have projected for 32 points. Like, I just don't think that this is the type of slate where you want to be looking at guys like Desmond Bane.
I don't mind. I mean, on FanDuel, I definitely don't mind him where he's 6,100. On DraftKings, at least the last time I ran lineups, I got some exposure to him. Not like he was one of my most popular players or anything, but I mean, I have him for 38.5 fantasy points at $6,700. I think as a last man in, you could do worse than that. Because this is basically what he's asking for. It's last man in for $6,800 or less. I don't have an issue with Bane in that kind of scenario. If you told me you had, 30% of Bane on DraftKings, I would say, all right, a little much. If it was just the last man in that kind of scenario, I'm okay with it. Let's see if we had more super chats. We did not. Santi Aldama was just ruled out. Aldama was listed as questionable. Relative to the amount of value on the slate, that is not going to change all that much for us. But let's round up the Cleveland Cavaliers. Then we are going to talk about Şengün being ruled out. And also, shout out to BetMGM, who is the sponsor of our show today. I'm doing the best I can to answer all the questions, keep up with the news. But still, we've got our sponsor we got to shout out. And have you paid attention to, by the way, any of the graphics that have been made of Eric Lindquist?
Negative.
Okay. Well, he looks like an absolute ass in some of the pictures. So it's great when we do this when we do this with him, because there it is. So if you have it, do you have?
I have seen that.
Right now? Yeah, there he is. There he is. Yeah, there. They took that picture while he's having an enema put up in him, and that's the face he made. He was just waving. He was happy to be there, excited.
Oh boy, did we lose me or did we lose Greg? All right. While Greg is rebooting, I suppose I'll pick up the Cavaliers here. I'll let him finish the ad read when he gets back. So no Garland, no Mobley. Obviously a big deal going up against Chicago. Chicago on the second leg of a back-to-back. We talked about Karis LeVert and Kevin Love. Both guys going to move into the starting lineup. Both guys stand out as among the best per dollar options on the slate. Kevin Love, 1.23 DraftKings points per minute this season with those two players off the floor. Karis LeVert, not quite as good, but in a starting role, it's hard to pass him up at his current salary. Donovan Mitchell should be the biggest winner from a usage perspective. He's increased his usage rate by roughly 3.5% with both guys off the floor, and he's averaged 1.29 DraftKings points per minute. So Greg mentioned Mitchell being one of his favorite pay up options on this slate. I'm right there with him. He's certainly not going to catch anybody by surprise today. I would expect him to be, pretty well owned when we're talking about this tier of players, but against Chicago, definitely usable at 8,700 on DraftKings. Other than those three guys, I think Jared Allen gets a boost. When you're talking about no Mobley in the lineup, it should definitely help him from a rebounding perspective at a minimum. He's increased his rebound rate slightly with Garland and Mobley off the floor this season. And I think Cedi Osman, assuming he plays, the last report I saw on him was that he is expected to play tonight. He's somebody that you could potentially use at 3,500. There are better values available for sure, but hello. Hey, Greg's back. Thank God.
I don't know what the hell just happened. I was trying to click. So all of a sudden I'm talking, I get booted out of Zoom, and then I try to click on the link we have again, and it says this page can't be reached. And I'm trying to figure out what it is that's going on, and all of a sudden I'm back in Zoom.
Well, so I missed you, buddy.
Thank you for covering for me. This is clearly a linguist. I don't appreciate it. We're supposed to be celebrating the New Year's. It's supposed to be a good time. And look at what happens. We try to get people to sign up at BetMGM, and Eric, being a company man, I thought he'd be on page with that. And that is not what he did. He hacked the system. He's trying to run some sort of, this is a hit job. Absolutely a hit job. There it is. Back up on the screen. We might have to leave it to the rest. Anyway, if you guys haven't signed up at BetMGM yet, click on our link below to sign up. You are going to get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, a risk-free bet up to $1,000. And most importantly, Eric doesn't want you to do it. And that's all the more reason that you guys should be signing up there. Sorry about that. We're back. We're back in action. So what were you talking about when I disappeared into the abyss?
I was just doing a brief rundown on Cleveland. Okay. Talking, Donovan Mitchell, you mentioned him as one of your favorite studs. The numbers suggest he's a very good play tonight at 8,700. He sees the biggest usage bump with Garland and Mobley off the floor. Not a huge surprise there. I think Jared Allen's fine. And I think Cedi Osman is a potential value option as long as he is in the lineup.
We did get the starters. He's playing. We saw that he's active. Not in the starting lineup, though.
Right. It's going to be Lamar Stevens again.
Yeah. So the starting lineup for Cleveland, Karis LeVert, Donovan Mitchell, Lamar Stevens, Kevin Love, Jared Allen. Cedi has really weird minutes for Cleveland, where oftentimes when he starts, he'll play like 36, 38 minutes. They leave him out there for almost the entire game, but then he comes off the bench and he's not allowed to play big minutes for some reason. So I'm always hesitant to play him whenever he comes off the bench. I prefer him certainly as a starter. And the other issue I have is we're getting so much value that's coming in that I don't expect to end up getting to him for that reason.
Yeah, he's definitely not a priority value play for me, but he is somebody that comes up pretty well in my projections. I think that with LeVert moving into the starting lineup, Osman becomes like the clear facilitator with the bench units. And I think that he is their, most reliable bench option at this point, right? Like we're talking, it's either going to be him or Isaac Okoro. So I feel pretty good that Osman gets, 28 minutes or so, with some of those at least coming as a ball handler / facilitator. And I think that that's usable at 3,500.
Well, James Harden was just ruled out, as well as PJ Tucker. So James Harden, who I assume it's in his contract that he's not allowed to play on New Year's. He's like, hey, there's this, it's like 2 strippers for 1 at the local club. They just raised my rafters in the wall. They retired his jersey at that one strip club in Houston. So I'm sure it's in his, that's probably what it is. It's in his contract somewhere that he's not allowed to play on New Year's. He's not going to be playing today. Eventually we're going to get to the Şengün news, but something else that's higher priority pops up every time just as we're about to. So James Harden getting ruled out. There is no Tyrese Maxey. PJ Tucker also being ruled out. So that's another player that we have to allocate some more minutes to when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers. But you had alluded to it before, Matt. If James Harden doesn't play, Joel Embiid is a smash to get to on the slate. I assume that is where you're going to be standing on this news.
Yeah, I mean, he legit might get to a 50% usage rate tonight. I think 40% is an absolute lock. We know how good this guy is. He's 1.64 DraftKings points per minute over the past month, and it's just a dream matchup against the Thunder. So I think, if you want to play Luka over him, I'm certainly not going to fight you too hard. But I think when you consider he's slightly cheaper, and I think Joel has, maybe not exactly as much upside, but just a tick less. I'm putting my eggs on my chips on him.
I think that totally makes sense. I'm pulling up the on-off court numbers right now, and here's what we got. So you know what I didn't do though? I should take Tyrese Maxey out as well. So let's take James Harden, PJ Tucker, and Tyrese Maxey off the court for the 76ers this year. As a guess, what would you guess Joel Embiid's usage is in these scenarios for Philly this year?
Well, with Harden and Maxey, it's definitely over 40%. If you want to add in Harden too, Tucker too, that honestly might bring it down a little bit because whoever's going to be replacing him is probably a higher usage guy. I'm still going to say about 40%.
Good guess. 42.1 usage rate for Joel Embiid with no Harden, no Tucker, no Maxey on the court. That is good for, or has led to 63.38 DraftKings points per 36 minutes, 62.96 FanDuel points per 36 minutes. We have so much value on this slate now as well that, I mean, we're going to be able to pay up for multiple stars. It's going to be tough to figure out who the priorities are. Luka has been on the heater of all heaters. I've never seen anything like this before. Luka's last couple of games, his last few games now, these last 4 games for Luka Doncic, 82 fantasy points, 60, 111, and 81. Like just absolutely bonkers stuff. I want to rerun lineups. How viable do you think it is going to be to make lineups that have Luka and Embiid in them?
I just did it, and it's very viable.
Okay.
If you go with Doncic and Embiid, and you rock the 2 Cleveland values we've been talking about, Karis LeVert and Kevin Love, you throw in quickly somebody like Alec Burks at 4,500. It's very doable. You're gonna need one guy who's like sub or like 3,500 or less, roughly. But I mentioned that I like Cedi Osman to potentially fill that role. You can use a Miles McBride potentially. Sadiq Bey, I mean, he's not sub 3,500, but he's 4K. Like, you can definitely make it work. And the more I look at it, that's now the optimal cash game build.
All right, Trey Murphy's available to play. Good. We don't need more players ruled out at this point. We've had enough of this. We haven't even gotten to talk. We're 35 minutes into the show, and we haven't gotten to a piece of news that broke right at the start because every couple of minutes somebody's getting ruled out. I've got a super chat here from Don Icewood, and then I also want to ask you about some value plays that we could potentially get to from Philly. But first, Don Icewood wants to know favorite guard play for $4,100 or under on DraftKings. So favorite guard play, $4,100 or under on DK. First, let's see, what is the pricing of some of the cheaper Philadelphia guards? So for
Milton's
Milton is
37.
Milton's going to potentially be one of them. Let me see if there's anybody else guard $4,100 or less that I would have projected better than Milton. I guess I would have I'm still gonna have McBride projected higher than Milton. If you already have McBride, so it's good. It's McBride or Milton. McBride the first option, Milton the second option. If you already have McBride, does that make sense to you?
That does make sense. What's the number? 4,100 or less?
Yes, 4,100 or less.
That's a rough cutoff point because it takes
LeVert.
It takes LeVert and it takes Noel off the table. But I agree with your assessment. I think that McBride's probably the safest at 3,500, but I think I like Milton a little bit more at 37.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna like both of them a whole bunch as a play. So and we could also just talk about the other Philly players right now. So the guy that we are going to like the most here, we were talking about before, is Joel Embiid, but Tobias Harris still benefits. Tobias Harris is somebody who is scoring 37.5 fantasy points per 36 minutes with Harden and Maxey and Tucker off the court. So over a fantasy point per minute for him. Melton is going to play increased. Melton and Milton are both going to play increased minutes. Here's what's getting tricky about this slate. I don't even know how I'm going to end up narrowing down the players I'm playing. Like, as I'm building my lineups, I know what's going to happen after I account for all this news is I'm going to be like, oh, I'm not getting to this guy who I really like, whether it's, DeAnthony Melton or whether it's Donovan Mitchell. I can't play everybody. I want to play like 15 guys in each lineup.
I feel that. The one thing I will say, I don't know if Tobias Harris is a huge beneficiary. Donoff numbers are great, but like he needs to score for his fantasy points, right? He's not a great rebounder. He's not a great passer. And I just think that this is a spot where Joel Embiid just does everything offensively. So Tobias Harris to me would not be a huge beneficiary of these absences. I think that the guards benefit more, and I would look at somebody like George Niang as a value play. I think those guys would all have more appeal to me than Tobias at his current salary.
So it's funny because I agree and disagree with you at the same time, because I think the numbers indicate he does benefit, but there are just like 40 other players that are benefiting more on this slate from injury scenario. So points per dollar, I think Tobias Harris would be somebody to get to if that was the only consideration. But because there are so many other really strong plays, I have a feeling I'm just not going to really end up getting to him just because of that. All right. What did we end up getting to in other super chats? I think we've answered all of them now. Is there anything else that stands out to you from the Sixers, or can we finally talk about our guy Şengün?
Let's talk Şengün. I mean, the one thing I'll say real quick, I think if Matisse Thybulle starts, don't fall for the trap. That's all I'm going to say. Like, we've seen Thybulle start, and it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get the minutes that a typical starter would. So I'm personally hoping that Niang starts, but if he doesn't, I still think Niang is the best value forward if you wanted to sort of choose between him and Thybulle and Danuel House Jr.
Thybulle's really funny because if he could just develop any kind of jump shot or any sort of semblance of offense, he would be so valuable, but he just doesn't have that. This is annually. He is the biggest splits in terms of offensive and defensive production of any player in the league. So I really like to look at dunks and threes, their EPM stats, to get like a rough idea of how valuable players are. Matisse Thybulle, 96th percentile defender this year. He's worth plus 2.2 points on defense per 100 possessions. On offense, 4th percentile offensive player, negative 4.5 points per 100 possessions. He's like a top 10 defensive player.
I want to know who's worse than him offensively.
So part of the issue is he doesn't take enough shots. So I mean, fourth percentile is still absolute garbage, but he does so little that there are guys like let's see who's so like Haywood Highsmith is a second percentile. The absolute worst player, and some of this also is I'm trying to look through players who have actually played minutes this year because the actual worst is Leandro Balmaro. He's the 0th percentile offensive player. Zaire Williams is second worst. But these are also guys who played, 60, 70 minutes, and it's just kind of small sample size stuff. Of players that have played over 300 minutes, James Bouknight is the worst. Then it's Haywood Highsmith, who has just been absolute terrible for fantasy this year. And Matisse Thybulle is the third worst.
Okay.
Kendrick Nunn, by the way, is tied with Thybulle.
That's a rough look for James Bouknight, who came into the league as a guy that was expected to be a scorer.
Yeah, he is not that. The overall worst player in the NBA this year, an impressive lack of offense and defense. Christian Braun, 5th percentile on offense, 2nd percentile on defense. Not an NBA caliber player at all. All right, let's talk about Şengün now and the Houston Rockets. We've been trying to get to this. We've been doing our best. And then we just, quick though, a super chat from Jorge Jacomi. Thoughts on disappointing value McBride today? Yeah, he sucked the other day, but the minutes and the potential are going to be there. And we've seen opportunities for him at other points in the season where he's moved to the starting lineup and done really well. So I think he's still somebody to get to today, even though he kind of sucked in the last game. And any kind of thing you would add to that about his disappointing outing as a chalk play the other night?
I mean, my thing is just, if you play him, don't expect him to be like a 25 plus fantasy point type of guy, right? He had 21 fantasy points in 46 minutes against Dallas. Even in a great matchup, I think that he is roughly going to be somewhere in the 18 to 21 type range, which is fine at 3,500 from a value perspective, but I just don't know if it's enough to win a tournament tonight.
Şengün being out would usually mean a lot on a lot of slates. I don't know if it does today. Because Bruno Fernando starting at center. He's going to split center minutes with Usman Garuba. Jabari Smith is going to play some center minutes as well. So, like, what's the split looking at here? We're probably getting 20 center minutes out of Fernando, 20 out of Usman Garuba, and then the other 8 center minutes are going to be played by Jabari Smith. Something along those lines.
The guy that I like the best is Smith of that group, right? I don't know if Fernando plays enough minutes to really matter. Garuba is just not good enough really for it to matter. So I'll take my chances with Jabari, who we've at least seen some semblance of a ceiling from him, right? If he has a night when he knocks down a couple of shots from the perimeter, you give him a couple of extra rebounds, maybe with Şengün out, right? Like I could see him getting into the 30s. In terms of fantasy points. It's hard for me to picture that with either of the other center options for the Rockets. So I'll pay the extra money and take the extra ceiling with Jabari.
With that said, though, he kind of falls in the category of Tobias Harris's me from before, where it's like, okay, here's a guy that benefits, but do I ultimately end up getting to him? I tend to think not, and I'm about to rerun lineups for the 80th time this show, never to completion. And my lineups get blue balled every time we start running them, and then I have to cut it off halfway through because players get ruled out. But kind of like before, we're talking about Tobias Harris, where Tobias Harris is $6,500 on DraftKings, which I think is a decent price point. On FanDuel, he is priced at $6,500 as well, which once again, I think that's a pretty good price point, but he's going to be really popular today relative to our most recent ownership projections. And I just think there's other guys I would rather be getting to. And the same goes for Jabari Smith. So Jabari Smith is at $4,900 on DraftKings. Once again, a playable price point, but I just don't know he's going to be a priority because of all the players that we also have ruled out. By the way, 6,000 on FanDuel, totally different story. Not really a priority in any stretch at 6,000 on FanDuel. 4,900 on DraftKings. That's, a little bit better looking, especially because he's power forward and center eligible, but not somebody I would expect I would get more than say like 10 to maybe 15% of.
Yeah, I think 10 to 15%. I might end up with a little bit more than that. I think I like Smith just a little bit more than you do, but yeah, I have him right now amongst forwards. He's like near the bottom of the top 10 in terms of expected value on this slate.
So I'm running my lineups right now, and the players that I'm getting to the most as pay up options. All right, I ended up, no surprise here, Embiid and Luca as my most rostered pay up options. Here's something that I'm uncomfortable with. I'm struggling to get to a lot of Donovan Mitchell in my lineups at this point. There's a lot of value.
You can't play all three. So I just ran my optimal and it did not have Luca in it, which I was kind of surprised at, but it does have Mitchell and Embiid. So it's actually got three Cavs, 4 76ers, and quickly.
My best projected lineup does have Luca and Embiid both in it, which I'm cool with. I'm more than happy with that.
I lean towards that type of lineup build. I'm willing to sacrifice Mitchell for Luca. And again, this lineup that I was mentioning has like Tobias Harris and DeAnthony Melton. I would much rather go with cheaper guys there to get up to Luca instead of Donovan Mitchell.
Got a super chat here from Don Icewood. How do you think Mark Williams will do tonight? Presumably not as well as he did the other night when he was, this is a guy who wasn't even on the roster not all that long ago. So here's the positive for Mark Williams. He appears to have supplanted Nick Richards as the backup center, right? So the minutes that Mason Plumlee is not on the court, Mark Williams will be on the court. So I have it projected 28 minutes for Mason Plumlee, 20 minutes for Mark Williams. Obviously, he destroyed last slate. It is hard for me to find him, even if you want to be as optimistic as possible, he's going to split minutes with Mason Plumlee. And even then, I think that's a little bit too optimistic. He played 21 minutes last game. Overall for the year, we just haven't seen him on the court that much. Like, is this a guy who scores 1.5 fantasy points per minute? Probably not. So even in 20 minutes, just as a salary saving play, there are so many good options to get to on this slate. He's $4,400 on FanDuel right now. Mark Williams on DraftKings is $3,500. I just think there's better value plays to get to. Even if you want to say this guy's a great fantasy producer and he scores 1.2 fantasy points per minute, you're only projecting him for mid-20s fantasy points. That's not enough on this slate.
Yep. Yeah, I think that what he did the past 2 nights, or the 2 nights prior, is a more accurate representation of what he's going to do. You
Agreed.
can expect him to be high teens, low 20s fantasy points.
Totally agreed. And let's see, do we get more super chats? I'm just trying to make sure that we keep up with everything as they come in. No, Don Icewood was the last one. If you guys haven't checked out the new tool that we have over at Stokastic.com, Bet Pro. This is going to be the easiest way to place bets. So we're sponsored by BetMGM today. And there's a good little partnership between these two. Because let's say you make a new BetMGM account, right? And you're like, all right, what do I go bet? We've got Bet Pro that is going to tell you what it is that you should be betting, and not just what you should be betting, but how much you should be betting. So it's going to tell you the expected value of each individual prop on the slate. And then on top of that, it is going to say what percentage of your bankroll you should be betting on each of those props. So this is a really useful way to help build up your bankroll. And if you guys are signing up for the first time, you're going to get a 3-day free trial. But on top of that also, we've got all the data tracked back to the start of the year for Bet Pro. And if you were betting $100 on all of the plus EV projected bets on this, after paying the weekly cost for Bet Pro, you'd be up $2,400 for the year. So I really do think this is a product that just pays for itself. And you don't really have to put much thought into it. You just pull up Bet Pro a little bit before lock. You look at what projects well. And are the bets going to win 100% of the time? No, of course not. But they're going to be profitable in the long haul. And for that reason, it's going to be a tool that ultimately ends up paying for itself. So when we get to the post-lock show, Matt and I will look at some of those bets. I was hoping we would be able to look at some of them before lock. That became an impossibility because of the amount of players that are getting ruled out right now. But Matt and I, we're going until 7:30 Eastern time tonight. So 30 minutes after lock, we'll be sticking around. We'll be sweating the games. We'll be talking about any injury news that comes out, and we'll find our best bets that we like for this slate that are going to be listed on Bet Pro to get you guys some betting value as well. Let's look at the news. How many players have gotten ruled out as I took 30 seconds away?
At least 35 or so.
Yeah. All right. No players ruled out. Questions in Discord. We have first for Miami High Life. Milton and Melton in the same lineup, a bad idea for a DK GPP. I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, there's no issue with that at all for me. I think you could certainly make a case for both of them. T. Lee wants to know, could we rank our favorite value plays? And then he also says, thank you. So T. Lee, we appreciate you. And I always, by the way, anybody that is in Discord all the time and asks us questions, we really do appreciate it, because for me, at least, it gives me a good sense of what it is that's on your guys' minds that you want us to talk about. So all the questions that are in there in the Discord channel, which is one of the perks of being a Stokastic Plus Platinum member, get in Discord. You can bother me all the time. You can make fun of Eric in Discord as well. There's a lot of benefits to it.
It's a good perk.
Yeah, anytime you guys have questions, you could fire those in there. So the value plays that I'm getting the most today are Kevin Love, Emmanuel Quickly, Karis LeVert, Shake Milton, Sadiq Bey, in that order. Those are my 5 most rostered value plays on DK. And I know that's what T. Lee is asking about for DK. Do you have anything you would add to that, or anything you disagree with, Matt?
I agree with you. I've come down a little bit on my Sadiq Bey exposure. I have roughly the same amount of Sadiq Bey as I do Naz Reid and Chetty Osman. But I think that Milton, Quickly, LeVert, and Love, specifically the first 3, Milton, Quickly, and LeVert, are your best value plays.
We've got a super chat from the Picture on Adam's Wall, and the Picture on Adam's Wall, a recent celebrity on the show, because a couple weeks ago I was doing a show with Adam, and Adam had just redecorated his office. This was when he still showed up to work every day. And just randomly, his office just fell apart. He set it up, and the picture on the wall just fell down in the background, and now it has its own. And now the picture on his wall opened up its own YouTube account. And he wants to know, can you give a percentage estimate on your confidence that Rudy Gobert is out? I think Gobert is much more likely to play than sit today. I would say like 70% he plays, 30% he's out. Do you have a strong lean on whether Gobert will be in or out today?
No, I want him to be out. Does that count for anything? I think that it's like a 50-50. I think that the only person that really knows is Rudy Gobert, right? It's considered a game time decision. I think that, we've talked about this. You don't think game time decision means anything. I tend to think game time decision means that it could go either way.
No, that is what what I think is that if a player is questionable in a game time decision, it means they're questionable, which is what Rudy Gobert is. If a player is probable in a game time decision, I think they're probably going to play. If a player is doubtful in a game time decision, I think they're probably going to sit.
Yes.
That's just how I approach the game time decisions. But he's questionable. I tend to think that he's more likely to play than sit. But I think both are live outcomes. I don't have a read where it's like for sure he's going to be in or out. So yesterday with the Nuggets guys, for instance, I paid no attention to the Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, and those guys being questionable. I was ultimately confident they were going to play. I don't feel that way in either direction with Rudy Gobert. I think he's more likely to play than sit, but not anything I would call a lock. Super chat from Cream. How many minutes does McBride get since he's starting? Likely a lot. I ended up putting him in for, pull up my Knicks here. I gave McBride 32 minutes, and that might even be on the low side.
Yeah, I think I have him projected for closer to 35. I just don't think it matters, right? Like, and again, no knock on Miles McBride. I think he's fine for cash games, but it's just not an exciting enough play for me in tournaments. He could play 35 minutes and finish with 16 fantasy points.
So I'm just uploading my lineups right now, and then I'm going to pull up some more numbers on McBride after I update those. For cash games, I think he's a pretty good, but I think there's a floor there considering the amount of minutes that he's likely to play. And I'm playing him in tournaments as well, but that doesn't make him one of my most rostered value plays. Like when I was going over the other guys before, he's not one of my 5 most rostered cheap plays on DK today. That was Love, Quickly, LeVert, Milton, Bey. And then McBride is after those guys. So he's like the next group.
And I will say, I'm willing to take a side wager. I don't know if that's allowed on air, but I think Chetty Osman outscores Miles McBride at the same exact price tag, despite coming off the bench.
All right, let's see. would I? Oh, I would take you up on that. What are we wagering here, though?
I feel good. Doesn't matter to me what the stakes are. We could do my monetary, or we could do something funnier.
Yeah, I think here's what we're gonna do. We've got the slate locks in 5 minutes. The chat will decide for us. In the post lock show, they'll tell us what the loser has to pay off. How about that? I think that's a
I
good
like
way
that.
to do it.
I'm in.
Chat will figure it out for us once we get to the post lock show. Some more questions in the Discord channel. Actually, I think we're caught up on them. Let me make sure that that's the case. Checking my notifications. How are you doing on your lineups, by the way?
Chris says we have to take a photo to replace Eric's.
Oh, okay. What about what would Matt have to do then? Just we would do the picture. I mean, we could do it either. That's not a bad one. Whoever loses has to do the Eric picture. Has to get it in. That would be way worse for me than for you, though, because I host the show every single night.
It's true. You'd see it all the time.
Forever.
Although I frequently tune in, even though I'm not hosting.
Yeah. We got some people saying shoey, a dinner. By the way, that also benefits Matt. Are you kidding me? The difference in what Matt eats versus what I eat, I've got all kinds of dietary restrictions.
Oh, okay. I thought that was a fat joke.
It is also. It's multiple things. But yeah, so we'll come up with something. We'll have the chat and whatnot. You guys will all figure it out after 4 minutes once we get to lock. Let's go through the positions and just go through the players we ended up getting the most exposure to, position by position, heading into lock. For you at point guard, Matt, who are the point guards you are targeting the heaviest?
Luka, Donovan Mitchell as the expensive guys, Shake Milton, and Quickly as the cheapies.
Yeah. Quickly, Milton, Luka for me at point guard. What do you got going on for you at shooting guard?
All the same guys, plus Karis LeVert and Alec Burks.
Okay, let me make sure. I always got to click all right, there we go. I think I might have clicked the wrong CSV the last time, so make sure I click the right one. We just got some super chats that came in, so we'll hit on those really quick. Darius Mayfield, Gordon Hayward, Keldon Johnson, or Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris amongst those three guys.
Yeah, I don't love it, but I'll agree with that.
Question for Anthony Bitanti. Who is a pivot from Reed post-lock if Gobert plays?
It's a great question, and it's one that I have been thinking about. I still honestly might have Reed projected as the best player, even with Gobert in. If you wanted to go in a different direction with a guy starting at 8 p.m. or later, you're probably looking at someone like, let's see.
So we have to take out all of the I'm going to take all the 7 o'clock games out.
Yeah, I think Alec Burks is your best bet if it's like just a utility swap. If it needs to be a forward or a center, Sadiq Bey has forward eligibility. And at center, I would just stick with Nas. If you're playing him at center, you're kind of stuck there, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah, I have Sadiq Bey projected better than him. Other forwards, though, or centers, if you have the space to get up to Isaiah Stewart, he's only $300 more. That is a path you could go down, but I still view that as being fairly comparable. Jalen Williams, Jalen, though. This is just the dumbest shit ever. It should be illegal. One of them has to change their name. They can't continue this nonsense. But Jalen Williams, another one, would be a possibility for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's tough. He's a really difficult player to swap off of if Gobert ends up playing.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you have him in a utility or forward spot. And I think that the Pistons are your best recourse.
Let's get back to going position by position before we head into lock, just the players we got the most exposure to. And by the way, if you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and stick around for the next 30 minutes. Matt and I are going to be talking about our favorite bets. We're going to be talking about any kind of late news. So if Gobert gets ruled out, We're talking about what to do with Naz Reid. If Gobert gets ruled in, we'll be trying to figure out what to do with Naz Reid. Anthony Edwards also. That's something else that could happen. Like, we might find out that Edwards gets ruled out, Gobert plays, but maybe Kyle Anderson starts. So maybe like that could be something that happens as well. It's hard. There's still a lot of pieces that are moving around. Shooting guards I got the most exposure to, Quickly and LeVert for me. How about for yourself?
Yeah, Quickly, LeVert, Burks.
Small forward, LeVert and Sadiq Bey.
Yeah, LeVert and Sadiq Bey by a lot.
And then forward, Love and Randall. A power forward, I should say.
I will add in Naz Reid and Chetty.
And then at center for me, Love, Embiid, and Jared Allen.
It's all Joel Embiid for me. I'm playing Joel Embiid a disgusting amount.
Totally understandable. By the way, something else I'm going to add. If Gobert plays, I think that's a terrific. So I have Gobert in my lineups right now as well. A little bit of exposure to him. Not a lot, but certainly going to be more than the field. That's a great tournament pivot if he ends up playing. Nobody's going to be on Rudy Gobert because number one, people hate Rudy Gobert, but he is so cheap right now. He is $7,200 on DraftKings. FanDuel, we've got Rudy Gobert right now priced at $7,600 for Rudy Gobert in a matchup against the Pistons. These are really cheap price points on FanDuel and DraftKings, and he might be like 1-2% owned.
Maybe even less.
Where is his current projected ownership? And it's always difficult. It is, he's 0.1% projected owned on DraftKings right now. On FanDuel, Gobert is projected for 0.3% ownership. If he's in, is that something you'd be interested in tournaments as I am?
No. Does it make me a bad DFS player if I say no to 0.1% owned Rudy Gobert? I mean, if he's in, I suppose. I know that my lineups are going to be locked in at center or not. Well, I know that I'm going to want to play a ton of Joel Embiid. And Gobert just hasn't shown any upside really this season. So it would be tough for me to get on him, even as a low owned contrarian play.
Let's see. Do we have any more news that's come in yet? No, nothing yet. All right. So guys, thank you very much for sticking around, but don't go anywhere. The next 28 minutes, Matt and I are going to be talking about everything that happens in terms of the DFS slate. The games are going to be tipping off at some point today. But first, let's go through some of our bets that we like for tonight's slate. And it's okay if the answer is no, but do you have any bets that you placed for tonight's games?
The only bet that I placed was the Chicago Bulls +2.5, which I have to imagine I got a little bit of closing line value on once we got Garland and Mobley ruled out.
Yeah, where'd that line close? I'll check that out right now. That does seem. When did you bet it, by the way?
Earlier today, this morning.
Yeah, it is 1.5 is the current line.
Okay, so I didn't get much, but
hey,
the Cavs have been a really bad against the spread team on the road. The Bulls have been pretty good as underdogs this year, so I was fine even if those two guys were in. I was fine with taking the Bulls in this spot, so I'm okay with that.
I think anytime you have just closing line value like that, though, if you're just betting NBA spreads, if you're doing that on all of your bets, the majority of them, you're for sure going to be profitable over the long haul. So you got a point of value there. Is it the same as getting 5 points of value? No, but it's still very strong. So I think you should feel pretty good about that. I'm curious. I want to pull up now against the spread records before we look at Bet Pro and some of our favorite prop bets of the day. Who would you guess? There's two teams tied with the best record against the spread this year. Who do you think they are? No cheating.
I would have to think that the Jazz are near the top of the list.
My team.
They have been so much better than expected this year. And I'm going to say the Pacers.
Okay, so we have... Oh, let me see if this is updated for the Pacers game today. The Jazz and the Pacers are both near the top, but they're not top two.
Okay.
So
the Celtics?
The Celtics are fourth.
Okay.
Pistons are third. The Pacers are third.
Who else has been like much better than expected? I mean, how about the Pellies? The Pellies are probably pretty good.
The Pelicans are also up there. They're 19 and 16 against the spread. So well above 500. If you're betting them blindly, you would be profitable this year.
I got it.
Hit with
Sacramento Kings.
It's not the Sacramento Kings.
Damn
Also
it.
very good. 19 and 15 against the spread.
All right, just tell me the answer.
So it's a tie. Both these teams are 21 and 14 against the spread this year. One of them is the Portland Trailblazers. This was a team that was, I think the Trailblazers were like plus 260 to make the playoffs before the year. And they've been good. So 21 and 14 against the spread for them. The other one, the Oklahoma City Thunder, which if you think about it, makes sense from this standpoint. They don't have one of the best records in the NBA, far from it, but they were projected to be wildly non-competitive this year, and they're 15 and 20.
Yep.
And the one other thing also is at this point, books have kind of bought into the Jazz. If you see the Jazz against teams, it's going to be a relatively competitive spread. OKC is still massive underdogs in a lot of these games, and SGA is just too good for this team to get blown out regularly. It's a close to 500 team. They're 15 and 20. So 21 and 14 against the spread for the Oklahoma City Thunder this year.
Yeah, you're right. And they've played a lot of competitive games even when they have lost. So I'm sure that their GM isn't happy, but at 15 and 20, they're still bad enough where they can tank their way a little bit further down the standings.
Now, do you want to guess who the two worst teams are against the spread this year?
Okay. I'm going to say the Lakers.
They are tied for third worst.
I'm going to say the Warriors.
The Warriors are not. They're towards the bottom, not one of the worst, but the a couple of these that are towards the bottom are going to be pretty easy to get. One of them is going to be a tough one.
The Pistons.
No. Pistons are like 500 against the spread.
The
average spread in their games is 7.5 points. You can only have so bad of a record when that's the spread.
How about Phoenix?
No, Phoenix hasn't been too. Let's see, where is Phoenix? Yeah, Phoenix is actually 19 and 18 against the spread.
All right, I don't like this game
because you're not good at it. All right, the Heat are one of them.
Okay, all right, they're 500 straight up, so they have to be. Okay, I buy that.
The two worst are the Heat and the Mavericks.
Really, the Mavs?
Yeah, they've kind of been garbage against the spread this year because it's another team that's favored fairly frequently. And they've also the record is better now. I guess there's just been a lot of spots where they've probably missed by a point or something like that. So Dallas and Miami, two worst teams against the spread. This is one I thought you were going to guess. The Minnesota Timberwolves tied with the Lakers. And then you've got the Atlanta Hawks right after that. The DeJounte Murray trade has low-key been a disaster for the Hawks. It kind of gets masked by the fact that the Gobert trade has been so bad as well. And people hate Rudy Gobert so much that people aren't talking about how much of a disaster the Hawks are this year. Like there's rumors that their coach is considering quitting right now.
Oh boy. It's so weird because I like a lot of pieces on their roster, but it just has not worked out of that one stretch 2 years ago with Nate McMillan.
Trae Young also seems like a bit of an asshole. Because there was that. Remember, was it 3 weeks ago? Trae Young and Nate McMillan reportedly got into an argument in practice, and then Trae Young just didn't show up to the game that night. And the Hawks didn't even discipline for him. They didn't discipline Trae Young for that. They were just like, oh, okay.
Classic millennial stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Just entitled nonsense. So, you know what we should find out also? What is our Chetty versus Miles McBride bet? Are we doing the photo to replace Eric's?
I like that. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to have a photo, but if I can, I think that's a great wager.
Why, are you a vampire?
I just, I'm not technically an employee of the company, but as long as it's allowed, I'm game.
We'll see. We'll see if chat comes up with any better ideas. If not, that could be what the bet is here. But in terms of other bets, we're sponsored by BetMGM today. don't forget that if you guys haven't signed up yet, when you do by clicking on our link, 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum and a risk-free bet of up to $1,000. So your first bet could lose and you'll get refunded with bets for up to $1,000. So Matt and I are going to try to find some prop bets that we like today. And we could actually sort it too, because if you go to BetPro, one thing that's really cool about it is you could sort by different sports books. So we have the best bet section, which is just across all sports books. These are what the best bets are. But in addition to that, we have it sorted by these are the best BetMGM bets, the best DraftKings bets, the best FanDuel bets, the best points bets, best Caesars bets, and so on and so forth. So you could sort it by the different sports books. But let's try to find some BetMGM bets that rate out really well for us that we might be able to give to the people here. If you're, this is kind of interesting. If you were going to be making a risk-free bet, I always think it makes sense. Your first bet, you probably want to play something a little more aggressive that's going to be plus money. Like you don't want to play the Celtics at home with the money line against the Pistons as your risk-free bet, because that's the 3 condom bet, right? You're taking no risks there whatsoever. You're really limiting your upside. But Walker Kessler over 1.5 blocks is plus 170. We have him projected for 1.8 blocks today. Do you have any feelings on Walker Kessler for over 1.5 blocks, when keeping in mind that if people were to sign up at BetMGM, they're getting a risk-free bet and they could take a shot at something that projects fairly well at this kind of plus money?
Yeah, I think there you can go in 2 different directions, right? You can play it aggressive or you can play it safe and pick one that you want to try and just get it in the door. But I do think I like your call on Kessler. He's averaged 1.8 blocks in less than 20 minutes per game this season. So I like his chances of getting to 2. I think that's a reasonable expectation. He has at least 2, it looks like, here in 4 of his last 6 games. So I'm in on that at that number. That seems tasty.
Yeah. And by the way, the other thing too is I'm just trying to apply strategy to the risk-free bet, where you're not going to find plus 170 bets that you go like, oh, this is going to win 80% of the time or anything.
Right.
But considering you're going to get refunded on the first bet if it loses, but this is the bet that I think makes the most sense of everything on the board to take advantage of. And there's other bets that we've projected fairly well also, like Bruno Fernando is starting and his rebound prop is 5.5. I think the over on 5.5 makes sense for Bruno Fernando. I'm going to pull up some of his starts this year because he's made a handful of them now, I believe. See, Bruno Fernando, he's made 3 starts. 3 starts for Bruno Fernando. He's averaging actually right around 5.5 rebounds per game. Although with that said, he's gotten hurt in 2 of his starts. So the one start that he's played to completion, this is actually a really weird box score. For his first game of the year, he started for the Rockets. He had 7 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. Then he got hurt in his 2 subsequent starts and played 12 minutes and 17 minutes. That's a bit of bad luck for him to get hurt in 2 out of his 3 starts this year. But I mean, based on that one start he had, if he's going to play mid-20s minutes, I think over 5.5 rebounds makes sense. Is that something you'd be willing to bet on, or would you stay away from over 5.5 rebounds for Bruno Fernando?
I think that's a decent number. Minus 155 might be a bit steep, but we're still grading that as a nice, strong wager. You know which one I'm looking at though, Greg. Checking in with a 10% expected value at a tasty plus 140. Chetty Osman over 1.5.
I should have known. Hey, it's one that was that game. Is that game? I forget. What was the start time of that game?
Yeah, that one starts at 7. Okay, sorry, we missed it. That's my bad.
No, all good. We just got to give it the refresh here to make sure, because we just had those games locked a couple of minutes ago, and the bets stay up until the game's locked. So no fault of your own there. You're gonna feel tilted now if he does it though. You find that bet and then he goes off.
It's all right. I got more than money on the line right now. I got pride on the line. I got you making a funny face on the camera on the line.
It would be rough. I have to do that every day. Eric would get to make fun of me. It'd be terrible. Let's see what else looks good for BetMGM, and then we could open it up to other sports books in general and just see if there's any bets that really stand out. Triple J's block props have looked good for a while now. He got off to such a strong start to the year, and it looked like he kind of had some of his foul issues in check. That has not been the case lately. He's right back to fouling like a maniac. So it's tough to trust Jaren Jackson Jr. Even at slate plus money over 2.5 blocks, I'd be a little more inclined to stay away from it. Is there anything on the board that stands out to you at BetMGM? If not, we'll just look at all of the bets overall for the night.
Yeah, I think that Kessler line you pointed out, that's the best one. That's your best option. Plus 170 is just a really nice price tag on a prop that kind of looks close to a coin flip,
Yeah, no, I'm it was my suggestion, so I'm inclined to agree with you, Matt. So I think that's a good way to go, especially considering how the offer is. And don't forget, guys, also, if you want to check out Bet Pro, 3 days free access by clicking on the link below. Good way to just see what some of the data looks like here. And I assume this might be your first time looking at it, Matt, because it just launched recently. It's really easy to find bets you like here. It's pretty simple, clear cut. It's just the line, the projection, win odds there. So really easy to sort by different sports books.
Yeah, I like this.
Let's see.
This is my first time, and I am enjoying playing around here.
What else looks good here? Over 2.5 threes for Tyler Hero. That looks like a very low line now that I'm looking at the lines available at other books. Why is his line so low? Especially with Jimmy Butler sitting for the millionth time this year.
Your boy, Jimmy Boo Boos.
Listen to these recent games for Tyler Hero. 4 threes, 3 threes, 0 threes, 5, 4, 3, 10, 9. So he has hit 3 or more threes in all but one game since December 12th. How is his line only 2.5 threes?
Yeah, appears to be a mistake.
I like that bet quite a bit. And that's what's useful also, is because I'm not going to just know off the top of my head what every prop line is for every player at every single sports book. It just makes it easy to find bets. So that's one for me that I like there. Tyler Hero over 2.5 threes. Anything else stand out to you? If not, Matt, we could start looking at the early results of the games and tilting our faces off.
I'm just going to bet the Joel Embiid over.
Okay.
It's at 34.5. It does not grade out super well in this tool. So probably maybe not the best time to talk about it, but I just think that Joel Embiid is going for 40 points tonight. So I might honestly take the look at some of those alternate type scoring lines and see what kind of odds I can get for an Embiid 40 plus point game. But I've talked about it enough. He's going to just absolutely demolish this Thunder front court.
So this year, because I still have the on-off court numbers up from before, when you have that situation we talked about before, Harden, Tucker, Maxey off the court, per 36 minutes, Joel Embiid scores 37.34 real life points. So I think you can make a case for it just based on those numbers. And by the way, this is including all scenarios. When you're also considering this is a plus matchup for Joel Embiid, I mean, it seems crazy to say X player is going to score 40 points, but if he's scoring about 37.5 points in neutral situations in this scenario, it's not that insane to give him a little bit of a scoring bump and think he gets close to 40 more often than not. It's not as crazy as as your tone might make it seem to be. Not that you think it's that crazy because you're betting on it.
Love it. You've just given me even more confidence to fire on Embiid.
All right, let's look at some of the early results from these games. The Nets-Hornets game. The Nets are up 15-11 in terms of big fantasy performances. Nothing really from the Nets game. The leading fantasy scorer is actually Royce O'Neal with 5 points and 2 rebounds. From the Hornets side of the game, the hot start goes to Mason Plumlee, which Mark Williams people cannot be thrilled to hear about because it's not like Mason Plumlee and Mark Williams are all of a sudden going to be sharing the court a bunch together. 7 points, 7 real life points for Mason Plumlee in 5 minutes to lead
Mason
the game.
Plumlee is the new Marcin Gortat.
Explain. The Polish hammer.
If they start offering first half of the first quarter DFS contest, Mason Plumlee is like a 10K player. The guy feasts before that first time out, and we won't see anything from him for the rest of the day.
You know who also does that a lot is Tobias Harris. How many times did Tobias Harris score like 16 points in the first quarter and then not make a shot the rest of the game?
Long Island's finest Tobias Harris. Yeah, I mean, he's it makes sense. You try to get him going early and then you let the other guys take over late. But yeah, it's weird how that happens pretty often. Yeah, Half Hollow Hills, Chris Karen. That is exactly right. There's only a couple Long Island guys in the association, so I keep tabs on him. It's basically him and Danny Green.
There's whenever I hear the nickname Hammer, I kind of laugh because there is, as you know, I like my UFC. I have to be more attentive on these shows because I don't have UFC to watch on Saturday nights right now, Matt. But there is a fighter who's no longer in the UFC. He's in the PFL, used to be in the NFC. His named Thiago Maheta Santos. He has a giant hammer tattooed on his chest because apparently he's just packing heat and he wants everybody to know it. So he's a gigantic hammer tattooed on his chest.
That is, I don't even know how to respond to that. That's just one of the more bizarre things. Don't they all wrestle in tights? Like you can't you tell? You need to advertise it as well.
Yeah. That's how he knocks guys out with ground and pound. Next game we have here, it is the Cavaliers and the Bulls game. Good start for Karis LeVert. We're 5 minutes in. He has 4 points and 2 assists. Donovan Mitchell, 2 points, 2 steals, and an assist. Donovan Mitchell was one of my most rostered players until more players started to get ruled out. And then I just unfortunately didn't really get to a lot of Donovan Mitchell. So I'm going to be rooting against him here. Kevin Love, 6 points and 2 boards in the first 5 minutes. We like to see it.
Yep, 2 triples.
Jared Allen, 2 points, a rebound, 2 assists, and a steal. That's good stuff as well. I was overweight to Jared Allen. From the Bulls side of the game, no real standout starts. You see this all the time from this team. DeRozan, Levine, Vooch. The scoring kind of gets spread out more often than not, and it's hard to really figure out which guy it's going to be. Knicks, Rockets. What's going on in that game? Quentin Grimes. 7 points, a rebound, and an assist for Quentin Grimes to start. Miles McBride, an assist, and no other stats. Decent start for him as well. 3 points, a rebound, and an assist for Quickly in the first 5 minutes of the game. So good start for Quickly. And then on the Rocket side of the game, Jabari Smith, 6 points and 2 boards. And then Kevin Porter Jr. in 5 minutes, 3 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. People are freaking out about
2 triples for Jabari, it looks like. I'm happy I stayed on him. I believe in him. He hasn't had the greatest rookie season, but on nights when when he can make a shot from the field, he's got some upside, I think. So I'm there. I'm definitely keeping my eye on Jabari moving forward here.
By the way, so we've got people in the chat just saying, like, freaking out. Luka, bust, Luka, dud, Luka choking. I go check. We're 6 minutes into the game. Luka has 9 points, a rebound, an assist, a steal, and a block. He's just fine, guys. He's just fine.
Yeah, so he's on pace for 80 again.
Yeah. It's funny how the messages and the tone change in the chat, too, because you go from Luka choking, Luka sucks, Luka dud tonight, to the messages are now Luka on pace for 100 fantasy points tonight, and then Luka from Obi-Wan in all capital letters. So things change quick in the first couple minutes of the game.
I've got some beautiful Luka Doncic cards. So
I imagine, I mean, I'm not much into cards. My brother is. They have to be the most expensive, right?
Yeah, I would say Luka and Giannis are probably the 2 guys right now that people want the most of. But I mean, like everything, the entire card market is kind of in the crapper. So it's a tough time to be buying.
Do you have the cards nearby your desk?
I'd have to get up. They're on the other side of the room. I'll bring them for the next time.
Who's more expensive? Because a couple of people have asked. Baldy in the Oaf said, I thought Zion was, and I assume he means most expensive.
Zion was like 2 years ago. He's kind of old news now.
What about as of late, though? I would think he would have had a bounce back this year.
No. I mean, a slight bounce back, but he has not reached that like level that he was at. I think Ja has overtaken him. Tatum has kind of overtaken him now. he's now just kind of another guy. And that to me is why it's so hard to invest in like the hot rookie. Like if you don't end up with a generational type player, you're going to lose a lot of money.
So here's something else also is that would make that kind of not surprising to me. People hate Zion online. They're starting to turn again where people are, because people love Zion and then he got hurt and everybody's like, Zion's fat, and the injury history. So I could see people kind of being skittish with him. It seems like the public is coming back around on Zion. If he stays healthy, he's absolutely going to get MVP votes this year. He's insane. He's not going to win or anything, but he's going to get down ballot MVP votes.
Yeah, guys, I don't have any good like Luka rookie stuff. What I have is, if you guys are in the game, you'll probably know. I have a Luka Zebra from Select, and I have a Luka Auto non-rookie numbered to like 21 or so.
Luka has 15 real life points 8 minutes into the game now. He's just
the guy's a monster,
guys. The heater that he's on right now is unlike anything we've ever seen from a fantasy standpoint. What would you set as, if I had to give you an over-under for Luka's fantasy points tonight, as of right now, what would you say?
80-ish.
80-ish? I guess.
Oh, you're saying right like this very second, how many fantasy points does he have?
For tonight, yeah. How many fantasy points, if you had to guess on the fly?
How many points does he finish with, or does he have right now? I'm still confused.
Finish.
I'm saying 80. I mean, with this start, I think 80 is now like kind of what he would be pacing towards.
Is that more or less than Chetty Osman will score tonight?
That's probably a little bit more.
So we've got a fun back and forth right now with Chetty and with Chetty and McBride, because Chetty's been on the court. Chetty has 0 fantasy points. McBride is 1.5.
Okay. Hey, Chetty's just getting this night started, baby.
Wouldn't it be funny if the final tally is like 6-5?
It'd be great.
Then I think we both lose. There's no winners in that scenario. They just both suck and have terrible games.
Yeah, if you guys, I don't know, if these guys are into cards, maybe next time I'll bring some of my favorites and we'll have a little show and tell.
Yeah, my brother's got a ton upstairs, and I know because are you constantly ordering them and buying and selling them all the time?
I've stopped a little bit. I've cooled down, but during COVID, like I needed a hobby, so that was really when I got into it.
So my brother and I own a house together, and my brother's been in Florida for the last month, and he comes back in 2 weeks. He's taken a work vacation type thing because he works remotely. And so he went down to Florida and he's been working there, and his wife is with him. And I bring in the mail when he's gone. He usually brings in the mail because he orders all this stuff. There has been one day since he's been gone that he's not gotten multiple packages. Like every day.
It's great.
His desk now is filled. Like I had to start, there's no more room on his desk for the packages in his office. It's now all over the floor around his office. It's the most insane thing ever. It's a crazy obsession. It's absolute hoarder status.
Almost. I'm definitely a PSA guy. It's also just cheaper, I think, when you're talking, unless you're talking super expensive stuff, but I like PSA.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my brother, because I always hear my brother say PSA 10.
Yep.
Like PSA 9. So I'm pretty sure that he's Chetty on the board, just hit a bucket.
That boy Chetty.
So he is now at 2 fantasy points, outscoring McBride 2 to 1.5.
I'll let you cash out now if you want.
That half fantasy. I mean, you can't cash out. That half fantasy point is going to be difficult to overcome. But this is going to make Eric's week when because of Miles McBride, I have to do that dumb picture that he has.
We got a ways to go. It's very, very possibly could be my mug that's splashed up there.
Kevin Porter Jr. on the other side of the game, 6 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists now for him. Let's see, how many points is Luka up to now? Still the same for Luka, 16 points, a rebound, an assist, a steal, and a block. I can't believe he's not the betting favorite to an MVP now.
Is it still Tatum?
Very close though. Tatum is like 10 cents ahead of him. Probably not after tonight.
I'd rather have Luka. I mean, I still think the guy that I like the most at the price range that he's at is Jokic.
Let's see. So what is it? I mean, it's fairly close. Like Tatum, Jokic, Giannis, and Luka, all have almost identical numbers now.
Yeah, I think I saw Jokic was like 6-1 the other day. That might have changed. That might have moved up a little bit. But like, I heard somebody talking about this. I want to say it was Matt Moore, who is somebody I work with occasionally. Like the best part about taking Jokic is you like know that guy is getting to 75 games this year.
Here's a good note to close out on. We just got the news. Rudy Gobert in, Kyle Anderson in, and also Anthony Edwards in. So we got all the Timberwolves guys in, and that is how we're going to close the show. Guys, thank you very much for watching, not just tonight, but all the other shows that we've done this year. Have a great night. Stay safe. Happy New Year. And we'll see you back in 2023.